All right, here we go. Drive time. Thursday afternoon, 14 minutes past the hour, 2 o'clock. A little chilly today. The sun is trying to shine. It's about 60, 62 degrees. Little cloud coverage here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah, as we are about to turn our calendars to May. Happy Thursday. Hope you're having a great week, almost to that weekend. And as it is every single day, it is so good to have you with us. Spence Checketts behind the mic, Porter Larson behind the glass today, producing the program. A lot to do. Man, the Utah Mammoth maybe showing a little bit of their inexperience, unable to close out the past couple of games despite having leads late. So we'll get to the latest in the Stanley Cup playoff chase and, of course, talk a little Utah Mammoth. They're going to try to stay alive coming up tomorrow as the series returns to Salt Lake City, Utah, after a quick stop in Vegas, trying to force hopefully another game, if not a couple of games. It's definitely far from over. I mean, this has been a series that has been very competitive, very close. A double overtime loss last night for the Mammoth after taking another lead. So we'll get to it on the show today. Of course, Vegas now leads that series 3-2. They need to close out one more game, and it's going to be a late drop of the puck tomorrow night. It is 8 p.m. Mountain Time and could be even later. It is predicated on the finale of the Sabres-Bruins game. The Bruins will try to close out Buffalo tomorrow. So, a lot of NHL hockey on the show. Canadians took a 3-2 lead over the Lightning last night. Philly was able to eliminate Pittsburgh in overtime. 1-0 was your score last night in that series. So, tonight we get the Stars and the Wild. That's been a really fun series. Minnesota leads that series 3-2. That would be an upset if they can eliminate the Stars. And the winner of the Mammoth-Vegas series will play the winner of the Oilers-Ducks series. The Edmonton Oilers have been able to survive, but Anaheim still leads that series 3-2. They'll try to close out Connor McDavid and the Oilers tonight and advance on to the second round. NBA playoff action. Some intrigue as a result of a couple of things that went down last night. We'll get to it. And what should be a interesting evening of basketball tonight with the Knicks and the Hawks at 5 o'clock on ESPN, the Celtics and the Sixers, 6 o'clock on NBC or Peacock, and then ESPN has the late game, Denver, Minnesota. So we'll preview these games. Some interesting, weird comments is how I'll put that from Draymond Green today. The Detroit Pistons stayed alive last night with a win over the Magic. The Cavs and the Raptors, probably the most unwatchable series, was actually a good game last night. Cavs were able to hold them off 125-120. And are the Lakers now on the ropes? Austin Reeves returned last night. Kevin Durant did not play, but the Rockets were able to hold off L.A. after an 11-2 run late to pull that game within 3. 99-93 was your final score there. We teased this yesterday because it broke while I was in the middle of an interview. Then we had to wrap up the show. But the Big 12 has struck this long-discussed private capital deal, the first such publicized conference-wide agreement in major college sports. It is a deal between the Big 12 and Redbird Capital as well as Weatherford Capital. And it's a three-pronged package. Okay, number one, deliver an infusion of capital straight to the league, $12.5 million. And then every member institution can opt into a capital credit line of $30 million each. We'll get into this a little bit on the show today. Until we see the final details of Utah's deal with Otro Capital, I don't know that I'm comfortable making an assessment about whether or not they're going to try to tap into this credit line or they even should. But we'll talk about it on the show today. Busy Thursday show. Appreciate you guys being along for the ride. RSL with an early kick coming up on Saturday. That is a 2:45 kick between RSL and Portland here in America First Field. That game is on Fox and Apple Television. So we'll get to a little soccer on the show today. Live Golf is trying to survive. They've established a new board trying to find some capital to keep that thing going. I don't think they have a shot because nobody watches their tournaments. There's not money to be made there. All right, our first guest, Howard Beck from The Ringer. We will preview tonight's NBA playoff action, talk a little off-season with all the rumors swirling. Some involving Larry Marketing. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Stormy Bonatoni will stop by to talk some hockey. We'll do a little college football with Stormy as well. She's a busy girl, man. She does a lot of different stuff. Our friends at Epic Brewing will stop by coming up at 3:30. They've got a brand new extended space at Epic. We were there last week for a remote, really, really fun. Carlos Mauricio Ramirez does a really good job for Apple TV. We'll do a little RSL with him. Of course, it is a Thursday, which means we'll hear from our friends Garrett and Preston Handy from the law firm of Handy and Handy, and we'll go from there on this Thursday afternoon. Howard Beck, Stormy Bonatoni, as well as Carlos Mauricio Ramirez, our friends from Sports Court. Me, Spence Checketts, hosting the show, driving the ship today, and Porter Larson producing the program, booking the program. You think the Lakers are in trouble? They're still up 3-2, but that's a nervy Game 6 in Houston, man.
Yeah, I'm definitely nerves in Game 6, and it's hard to say in trouble when you got 48 minutes and that's all you need to advance. But the way that Houston is kind of bounced back after what was just a really almost nauseating performance in the first couple of games, it's been impressive. So I don't know if the Lakers are necessarily in trouble. We got a series on our hands at the very least. They're going to make them earn it. I do think that Lakers probably get it done in Game 6, but you never know. Seen crazier things, and of course, a few of those series comebacks to keep an eye on. As you mentioned, RSL, Big 12 funds on the docket today, and of course the latest in Live Golf. Indeed. All right,
we'll bring in Howard Beck right off the top to talk some NBA, but before Howard stops by on a Thursday afternoon, courtesy of our good friends at IFA Country Stores, it is time now for your opening tip. With IFA's Weed and Feed, you'll grow strong, healthy, dark green turf without a weed in sight. It's the ultimate lawn owner power move, now at IFA.coop or one of your local Utah IFA stores. All right, so this Big 12 private capital deal with Redbird Capital is causing a lot of reaction, and a lot of it is coming from folks that are in influential situations who kind of run the country, whether it's the Senate, Congress, people speaking up. So it's Redbird Capital and Weatherford Capital, okay? And the way this is outlined is a three-pronged package. Number one is simple. It instantly delivers an infusion of capital to the league itself, to the Big 12 offices. That number being floated out is about $12.5 million, okay? And what the league is saying is this is to drive commercial development and business growth. And then they're going to offer each member institution what is called an opt-in capital credit line of $30 million each. And the way they're kind of spinning this is to create a strategic business partnership that could pay off when the conference next goes to market for its media rights contract. My antennas went up as soon as I read that sentence. Okay, so the Big 12 describing the deal as, quote, Redbird Business Development Partnership. As part of their Collegiate Athletic Solutions partnership, the firms are co-investing the infusion into the conference with an expected return, because of course they are. However, the capital partners will hold no ownership in the league, and the deal will not change the operation or governance of the conference. Commissioner Brett Yormark told Ross Dellinger at Yahoo Sports. The vote came from presidents and chancellors last Thursday, and it finalized the agreement that's been under discussion now for probably about 2.5 years. So Doug Giroud is the Kansas president. He's the president of Kansas. He's kind of thought to be the person, as far as of the member institutions, really pushing this. So when it comes to what this means for Utah, all right, number one, we have to find out what the final details of Utah's own private equity deal looks like with Ocho Capital. We've heard some rumors here and there. There was a hire made for a general manager to kind of be over this project between Utah and Ocho. He's going to kind of run this new offshoot company that Utah's creating to kind of run everything. I think it's pretty... Now, not all private equity deals are created equal, because you hear a lot of broad stroke fear mongering, like you never want to get in bed with private equity. That's not the case. There are more things in your life right now that are run by private equity than you probably have any idea about. That's how the world works, and it's how it started to work even more so over the past, I'd say, 10, 15 years. Chances are your dentist, your doctor, where you go grocery shopping. Private equity has its tentacles in almost every part of commerce in the United States of America. So I'm not here to say I'm not here to fearmonger. I'm not here to say this is a horrible idea. But when you look to get in bed with profit-seeking private equity, people in Congress are going to start to pay attention, and then it's going to affect things like your tax status, nonprofit, institutions and such. This isn't going to be just a clean situation for Utah individually with Ocho Capital, although Taylor Randall's a very smart, savvy businessman, and I'm sure he dotted all of his I's and crossed all of his T's. And I don't know this to be true, but my guess is he has been closely in contact with our local legislators and people up on the Hill to make sure that everything is copacetic. I can't say that for sure. That's just my guess, knowing Taylor a little bit and his reputation as being a smart operator and a guy with a business background. But when it comes to the potential of maybe making two separate transactions, getting in bed with two separate private equity companies, and again, ultimately, we have to see what this deal looks like. We have to get more, and reporters like our guy Chris Kamrani or people over the Salt Lake Tribune will be able to get to the bottom of this. But there are some things that just stand out as a little bit alarming. Now, number one, make no mistake, none of these guys are making capital infusions or investments into products to lose money. That's number one. What I will say about private equity companies is they all are sharks. Now, I don't think they're all bad, and I don't think at the end of the day all private equity deals should be treated the same. But the motivation for every firm and every shark who works for every firm is the bottom line and the bottom line only. I do believe at some point the consumer experience for Utah basketball, football fans, Utah sports fans who like to go to Rice Eccles or go to the Huntsman Center or go to the new baseball park, the consumer experience is going to change, and it doesn't mean it's going to be bad, but it probably is going to be different, and it definitely will be more expensive. Okay, so we got to get that out of the way. And it's up to each individual as to what sort of discretionary income or disposable income you have to allocate to going to a football game or buying a Cam Rising jersey, or going to probably pay for concessions a little bit more, and the concessions will probably be higher quality. They're probably going to build some bunker suites and create some more sponsorship opportunities to generate more revenue, because at the end of the day, that's really what they care about. Nobody at Ocho Capital is worried about the historical sentiment about the Huntsman Center being full once upon a time. They don't give a grip, or they don't give a rip, I should say. They'll come in, look at the facilities, decide exactly what needs to be upgraded, upgrade facilities, upgrade probably concessions and the consumer experience, and they're going to charge you more for it. That's how it works. It's called capitalism. But if you have an agreement with one private equity firm already, I just think you have to tread really lightly if you're going to opt into this, what's being called a $30 million line of credit. This is not a $30 million check. This is a $30 million line of credit, and I don't know what they're expecting to get back. I mean, the typical market rate for most investments, give me 7 or 8% and hopefully more, and we're doing well. But the tenuous thing here is that these private equity guys are already looking for the new media rights deal in 2031. That's 5 years away, basically, okay? What is this sport going to look like in 2031? There are plenty of people, including Kyle Whittingham, that believe in a couple of years, this is a sport that will be basically dominated by two leagues. And it's going to look a lot like the NFL. And those two leagues will be, let's be very clear, the SEC and the Big Ten. Do they rebrand and change it to something, in football, it's AFC, NFC? Do the Big Ten and the SEC rebrand and change their names? Is it an entirely new ecosystem where the top, 40, 50 schools, football schools in America, just break off from the NCAA and basically create NFL, light? It's an NFL type model. I mean, there are people believe that that's going to happen, and it might happen sooner rather than later. So if you're going to take a $30 million line of credit and you're going to say, come back to us in 2031 when we negotiate our new media deal, you better be damn sure that there's a media deal to negotiate. Because, when you look at the teams in the Big 12 that would likely get an invitation to this new football hypothetical reality, I would imagine Utah and BYU are in it. I would imagine Texas Tech is in it. But I don't know that there's room for everybody. So if you're the Big 12, will you go the way of what happened to the Pac-12 and take your leftover member institutions and rebrand as the new Big 12? Well, if you lose your top, let's say, 5 or 6 brands to this new SEC Big Ten hybrid situation, what's your media rights deal worth in 2031? And are you going to have schools looking around going, well, wait a second, we opted into this $30 million credit line, and now our media rights deal isn't near what we thought it, and now we're in debt to these guys because there's going to be language in the contract to make sure that they get their money on the other side of whatever window they deem appropriate for them. So again, I'm not trying to fearmonger here because I hear a lot of people who clearly don't understand these things be like, "Oh, watch out for private equity." Every part of your life is likely influenced by private equity. It's not all created equal, but you do have to be very careful. All right, some good NBA basketball tonight. Howard Beck will join us after a quick break. Keep it here on ESPN 700. Let's see. We're about 11 days away from knowing where the Jazz will draft. NBA lottery night, Mother's Day this year, May the 10th. So right around the corner, then we'll start to get some answers about what this team will look like. Interesting stuff last night. The Rockets are still alive. The Pistons are still alive, and the Cavs look like they're going to put away the Raptors in a series that has been rather unwatchable. Some good stuff tonight, NBA style. Let's bring in our guy Howard Beck on a Thursday. Howard, how are you, sir?
Doing well, Spence. How are you?
Doing well. So let's start with Rockets-Lakers. Austin Reeves comes back last night. Kevin Durant does not play, and Houston's able to hold on there. I don't know that I'd go as far as to say they're going to win it, but that's a pretty nervy Game 6 in Houston now for the Lakers, yeah?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's really – these playoffs have been absolutely bonkers. I'll get to Lakers-Rockets in a second, but just to back up for a second, so the NBA actually put out the stat last night that we've got every series going at least 6 in the East, and that's only happened like 4 times in the last 23 years, I think, and it's the first time in, around 10 years. And I've been chatting, I've been at the Garden for a couple of the Knicks games, and I've been, seeing people around, and I've been kind of floating this premise that is not crazy and everybody agrees with it, but I'll just kind of let you know that everybody affirms this, which is that aside from San Antonio and Oklahoma, and a couple weeks ago we would have said Boston, but it's really now just down to Oklahoma and San Antonio. Everybody else is so close in talent and ability, and the injuries are playing a role here too, of course, that it's producing all these really crazy series. Like, the fact that Orlando was up 3-1 in the first place and Detroit's fighting for their lives. It's just, parity has been the theme for the last 7-8 years anyway. But that we've been concentrating on the championship level, on the finals level, and really, but what we're seeing now is, Orlando's not your average 8 seed, Detroit's not your average 1 seed. They're a 60-win team that never even won a playoff series before becoming a 1 seed, and so it's just been a roller coaster ride for all of these series. That's been on my mind even as I was watching Lakers Rockets last night because no Luka still. Austin Reeves comes back after, however many weeks out. Durant is out. And so they're really kind of evenly matched. And so you get just this kind of slugfest. And it was super tense watching that game because the Lakers are fighting, obviously, or the Rockets are fighting for their lives. But the Lakers are, it feels like, too, because the margin for error is just so narrow. And I think the Lakers have to be a bit nervous here, and especially because of everything hanging over, right? Like whatever the Lakers' last game of this postseason is, might be LeBron's last game as a Laker, might be his last game of his career. Who knows? So there's just a lot, I think, on the line. And then I think on the Rockets end of it too, it's, they certainly expected when they traded for Kevin Durant that they were going to get out of the first round at a minimum. You don't trade for a 37-year-old star, who's still, at that time performing at a pretty high level without expecting a deep run. And here they are, fighting for their lives.
What do you make of the Durant stuff? And look, injuries are injuries, and he's not going to play in Game 6 either, but he wasn't with the team, and then there's all this speculation about what's next there. I mean, I don't know, Howard. I've always just thought this guy is way too good to have this legacy as just simply a mercenary, and maybe that's just the reality of the league now, but what do you make of kind of the noise surrounding Durant throughout this series?
I mean, the fact that he wasn't on the bench for a couple of those games was, odd considering that that's the normal thing is even when you're rehabbing, you sit with your teammates on the bench in street clothes and cheer them on and all that. And now he has been the last couple of games. I don't really know what to make of it. We've got the whole Burnergate thing that happened around All-Star, leaked texts and all this stuff or leaked DMs, whatever they were. I think the bottom line is whatever we may think of what the chemistry there is, whatever we may think of Kevin Durant's career path the last 5-6 years, the bottom line is the Rockets have a fundamental decision to make going into this offseason. Did the experiment work or didn't it? Is it time to move off of Kevin Durant? Is he going to be on yet another team starting next season? I don't look at it through the prism of like legacy and all that. Like the dude won back-to-back finals and was back-to-back finals MVP. He's got a regular season MVP. He's got a bunch of, second place finishes in the MVP regular season vote in prior years. He's one of the greatest scorers we've ever seen. Like, I know it's been jagged. I know he's a complicated figure. I know he's a little polarizing, but the guy's had one of the greatest careers, we've seen in the last 20 years. And so, and actually ever. It's just been kind of a jagged one, and he's made some unfortunate decisions along the way, I think. But it's his career. He owns those decisions. He doesn't seem to regret any of those. But it's going to take a lot of explaining. Like 10, 20, 30 years from now is when we're trying to explain Kevin Durant's career to our grandchildren or something. It's going to be complicated.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, I'll underscore your point of just simply a brilliant individual talent, one of the greatest pure scorers of all time. Certainly not denying that. Let's move over to the Pistons staying alive last night. And they were able to beat the Magic. And we saw a better game from Jalen Duren, but they actually sat him in stretches. And I thought they might because he just had been so bad. Now, of course, the main impetus there is Cade looked more like Cade. And I know you're not a prediction guy, but this series has been a lot more intriguing. And in a way, Howard, this has been a little bit redeeming for Jamal Mosley in Orlando because I think a lot of people thought this is who they were going to be this year anyway. They just haven't been up until the last 10 days.
Yeah, I mean, it's more than redeeming. It's probably like job saving for Jamal Mosley. I mean, everybody around the league, and I'm talking like even before we got to the playoffs, even before we got to the point where Orlando was fighting just to get out of the play-in, Paolo Banchero had all these subtweeting kind of quotes over the course of the season that seemed to be shots at Jamal Mosley, and they were underachieving. And yeah, they had a lot of injuries, but still, like the Magic expected to be a lot better than what they were. And if you had asked anybody around the league a couple of weeks ago, certainly, as we were winding down the regular season, they would have said, oh, yeah, if we're like looking at all the coaching positions that are opening up, Orlando is on the definite list. It was that definitive to people around the league. I don't think you can say that right now, especially if they pull this off. Now, if they blow this and you go from being up 3-1 to losing it, everything is back on the table probably. But, man, I mean, the way that team has looked the last, just during this series has been super impressive. Obviously, they're down Franz Wagner again. Injuries are just a constant plague for that franchise, it seems like. But, one of the more impressive performances by an 8 seed we've seen in a while. But, again, they weren't supposed to be an 8 seed. In fact, I haven't gone back and looked. But, Spence, if you went back and looked at where people had projected all these teams back in October, they probably had Orlando higher in the standings than the Pistons. The Detroit had made a breakthrough, getting to the playoffs as a 6 seed, losing in the first round. I think most people thought they were still going to be somewhere in that 5-6 range, and I saw people having Orlando in the top 4, including my colleague at the Ringer, Michael Pina, who I think had the Magic in the finals in the preseason. So they're a tough team to figure out. A lot of high-end talent. They've got more high-end talent than the Pistons do. But they don't, during the regular season, at least they couldn't seem to put it all together and they couldn't stay healthy. And yeah, look, the Pistons can still get out of this. Jalen Duren did have some promising moments last night, including that late block, but scoring wise, he hasn't been there. And it's just, they've got, the burden on Cade Cunningham is just so huge.
Yeah, it is. The Harden, Durant, Kyrie, Brooklyn group, kind of went down as the best hypothetical team in the history of the NBA. And the 76ers, hypothetically, are a really good basketball team if certain things would just fall their way, namely Embiid staying healthy and Paul George looking like he did a number of years back. Really good young backcourt with Maxey and Edgecombe. There are several general managers or owners that would love to have what the Philadelphia 76ers have hypothetically on paper. I don't know that I'm convinced that they can get 2 more from the Celtics, but they absolutely shut Boston down the other night in Boston. And again, another nervy Game 6, because Game 7s, you want to avoid them if you can. It's a Jason Tatum sprained ankle, a Jaylen Brown foul trouble away from getting weird. But your thoughts on what we've seen with Philadelphia and Boston?
Yeah, wild series again, another one. Embiid, first of all, Joel Embiid. I feel bad for the guy. I know no one's going to feel bad for Joel Embiid, but the number of just random. It's not even just injuries. It's the Bell's palsy a couple of years ago, and then the appendicitis a couple of weeks ago. I don't know that anybody really expected him back in the series, and when he did come back, they promptly lost, and it looked like he was trying to do too much. But then the next one, he's absolutely dominant and they win. And now the Celtics are, not on the ropes, but I think probably feeling pretty nervous going into this game tonight. I think all this you were referring to the GMs around the league, they'd all love to have the backcourt. They would all probably love to have Paul George at like half of his salary, and they might want Embiid at a third of his salary because of the injury concerns and availability. But when those four guys are all out there and fully functioning, like that's a scary team. They could pull this off against Boston. It's not out of the question. I don't think they're going to. It's a lot to ask of Embiid in particular, and I still think like the fit with those guys gets wonky at times. It's sometimes hard to tell, who they're playing through. And Embiid has a tendency to try to do too much, which we've seen this week. But they're super dangerous. I don't think any team wants to deal with them.
I feel like the Knicks are a lot better than the Hawks. I feel that way. And the other night at the Garden, that kind of manifested itself. Got off to a really good start. Atlanta obviously was able to finish the season on a little bit of a run, but it's always weird with the current landscape of the league where if you're not paying close attention, you pull up the standings and it's like, oh, they've won 12 of 13. Oh, wait, they played like 8 teams that aren't even trying. So, I don't even know how much of Atlanta's late season run was Quinn figuring something out. Feels like it probably ends tonight in Atlanta, but again, it's a game 6. This thing's at 3-2. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, I mean, the talent gap, back to the premise from earlier, the talent gap between any two teams in any of these series that are still going isn't that big. Are the Knicks more talented and more experienced in the postseason than the Hawks? Sure. And if without C.J. McCollum, who the Hawks picked up, in that Trae Young trade that was characterized at the time as just a giveaway of Trae Young, without C.J. McCollum, like they're not even in this series. It's been interesting to watch like Jalen Johnson, who is like, their new foundational star and the reason that they felt comfortable moving off of Trae. Jalen Johnson, like he's really interesting as a player because he seems like selfless to a fault. He's a guy who can put up triple doubles on a nightly basis in the regular season, but I haven't felt like he's been assertive enough in this series. So yeah, Brunson and Towns, Karl Anthony Towns, his offense can come and go sometimes. At least as a scorer, he's been a great facilitator in this series. We know what Brunson can do. C.J. McCollum has been the Hawks' clutch player, but they really need a second guy, and it's supposed to be Jalen Johnson, who's in fact supposed to be the first guy. But it is his first playoffs. It's Dyson Daniels' first playoffs, and this is a youngish team that is was reconstructed partially this season on the fly. So, yeah, the Knicks should win it. I had picked the Knicks in 6, and so if they close out tonight, that's kind of what I had expected initially. But once the Hawks, stole those couple of games and won a game at the Garden, I don't rule anything out. Like they're home. It's not going to surprise me if they can push this to 7.
Raptors Cavs has a real NBA TV at noon vibe. It's been a rough series to watch. Last night was a little bit better. Look, I'll say the same thing kind of I said about Knicks Hawks. I feel like the Cavs are just better, but the Raptors, to your earlier point about all this talent, kind of being somewhat level, they've got some excellent players in Scotty Barnes, and Brandon Ingram's a little bit hot and cold. Same with RJ Barrett, but I think Atlanta has made this a little bit tougher than I thought they would. Then I realized James Harden plays for Cleveland. Ultimately, what have you made of this series so far? It's another one that's going to go to a game 6.
Yeah, Toronto-Cleveland was probably the series I had the least interest in when the postseason started. I'll admit. I honestly don't know what to make of it. It's kind of a coin flip series in a way. Like the Cavs have the higher end talent, especially offensively. But the Raptors play really hard, and they've got a lot of length and a lot of switchable defenders. And Scotty Barnes is phenomenal. Ingram's banged up now, which hurts them, and they're still without Quickly. The Cavs have the advantage here. I do expect them to pull this out. But it was funny, as of a couple of days ago, people were talking about are we going to see Toronto Orlando in the second round, which is a series that nobody envisioned a couple weeks ago.
So I want to revisit something with you. I just when Cleveland moved Garland, my antennas went up right away, and I just think they're going to trade Mitchell. I don't think they want to. I just don't think they're going to have a choice. And look, I had a front row seat for what happened here with Donovan, and love Donovan. He's awesome, and any team would be lucky to have him. I don't think he's signing an extension. I don't know what it looks like, but I feel like that trade was made kind of with the thing in mind, like, let's get off of Garland's money. Let's acquire Harden. We're going to let his contract expire. And then we're going to have to move off of Donovan because I don't think he's going to sign there. Now, the complication is a lot of their draft capital is in the back pocket of Danny Ainge and the Utah Jazz. But are you hearing anything, on that front? Because, there was a report a couple of weeks ago he's not signing. They're going to have to move him.
Yeah, I have not checked in on that recently, and I have not heard much buzz, which is funny. Like, this is the time of year you would think you'd start to hear that. Now, if they get eliminated in the first round, we're going to hear all kinds of noise, I'm sure. And I think, too, once we get past the lottery and we're in that space between the lottery and the draft, and everybody knows where people are picking and what you might get for, obviously Giannis is at the head of the line here, and then does Mitchell figure into that? We'll start hearing more murmurings in the next couple of weeks, I think. I was one who thought that Mitchell was not going to be there permanently after the failed gambit to get to New York and the Knicks failed negotiation to get him, which turned out just fine for the Knicks because they ended up signing Brunson, and I don't know if those two would have been good together anyway. But the idea of Mitchell moving on again at his behest, which is seemingly the way this is going to go if he turns down an extension, I don't rule anything out. Like, this is today's NBA. I think it'd be a huge setback for the Cavs, though. They had these two pairings, right? A veteran Donovan Mitchell and a veteran Jared Allen as one kind of guard big combination, and then the two guys they drafted, Garland and Evan Mobley. Mobley really hasn't reached the ceiling that everybody expected of him, and he's starting to draw more and more fire, it feels like, for kind of not evolving into more of a multi-purpose guy. Garland is gone. And you've got Harden, who's 36, 37. Like that's not a long-term thing either. So if Donovan doesn't want to play with Harden, or if he just doesn't want to be in Cleveland anymore, or if he's just lost faith in the overall program, that's tough for Cleveland because, your window with Harden ain't long, and, Evan Mobley has not become the superstar that everybody was projecting. That may yet happen for all we know, but as of right now, the future doesn't look quite as bright as it did a couple of years ago.
Okay, so I want the Howard Beck opinion on the Rudy Gobert discourse. Okay, so ultimately, I'm a Rudy guy. Okay, he was great when he was here. The difference between Rudy and Donovan is every time Donovan did something great in the community, there happened to be a camera there, and there happened to be a reporter there, CAA stuff. And then Rudy would go about his business, and I can tell you he quietly gave a ton to Salt Lake. He's kept his house. He spends time here. I like Rudy as a person, and I do believe he impacts winning. But whenever he is kind of front and center with an NBA narrative and a storyline, the takes out there are wild. It seems like he's as polarizing of a player as there is in the NBA. What's the Howard Beck take on the Gobert discourse?
I don't understand it. I get that is a thing. I understand it's a thing. I don't quite understand why it's a thing. I don't know if it's because he's French. I don't know if it's because of, his, lack of evolution as an offensive player. I don't know if it's because Shaq is constantly dumping on him and that there's just some, trickle down effect to the masses and the discourse at large. I don't know. The dude's an incredible player, has had a fantastic career, anchored a lot of really good Jazz teams, is anchored a Timberwolves team that's made back-to-back conference finals, and he's given Jokic all he can handle in this series. I don't know. I don't get it. I know there was a little bit of just the residue from the COVID flippancy by him, but that's years ago already. I don't think that's what's doing it. he seems to get under a lot of people's skin and get on people's nerves. I don't know what else to make of it.
How do you see the series playing out? I mean, I've always kind of pushed back on the Jokic, the Rudy gives Jokic problems narrative, because if you go to Basketball Reference and look at Jokic's numbers against Gobert, they're the same. It's like 28, 14, and 11 or whatever. But ultimately, I think Rudy has been a little bit problematic. Of course, injuries are going to plague both these teams, especially Minnesota. Your thoughts on how it plays out the rest of the way?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, forget the whatever we've seen in the past and all that. Like in this series alone, Gobert has definitely bothered him.
Absolutely,
and has not been as efficient. That's clear. It's unfortunate, obviously the Timberwolves missing their entire starting backcourt now, and like Dosunmu, I think, is now questionable for the game. So that's rough. Like he's been their one saving grace. Like Denver's probably winning this just because they're going to win the battle of attrition. Like even without Aaron Gordon potentially, and then they haven't had Peyton Watson. They still have Jokic and Murray, and the Timberwolves are down Anthony Edwards and Dante DiVincenzo at a minimum. So I think Denver pulls this out. And then we get, the battle that I think a lot of us were looking forward to, which was, Jokic versus Wemby in the next round. But, the Nuggets really need Aaron Gordon healthy. They need Peyton Watson available if they're going to have any hope whatsoever against San Antonio.
Howard, before I set you loose, I have good news. Tanking is officially over. So that's good news.
We solved it.
Yeah. What do you make of it? I mean, at least they're trying something. What do you think?
The general sense I get is that people think, like, okay, cool. This will do more to discourage tanking than anything else they've done in a very long time. Yay, great. Good job, Adam Silver and company. But did it go too far in the other direction? Like, we've talked about this before. It is such a difficult balancing act to try to dissuade teams from tanking effectively, which these flatter lottery odds will do. And with more teams in the lottery, it will definitely punish you for being bad. But the problem with doing that is then you've taken away hope potentially from a lot of teams that might have been bad, not through any decisions of their own. It's not always just tanking teams. Some teams are just organically bad, and you have to have a path to get better. And the draft has traditionally been the way, and high picks in the draft have traditionally been the way. And if you have made it that much harder, and if the worst teams, the teams that need the most help, are going to routinely fall to 8th or 9th or 10th or wherever, I don't know what that does long term. I don't know what that may do, especially to smaller markets long term. And so I chalk this up as another experiment. It will tamp down tanking. The league will declare victory, but we'll see where we are in another few years. And I should just note, of course, this is not adopted yet. Like the one making the rounds now that's been reported over the last couple of days is a proposal. It is the working proposal. I get the sense it will probably be the one that the owners vote on in a couple of weeks, probably with, maybe some minor tweaks, but some version of this will be the thing that they adopt. Whether it works, we'll know in a few years.
Howard, thanks, man. Enjoy the games tonight. Have a great weekend. We'll chat soon, okay?
Thanks, Spence. Take care.
Howard Beck from The Ringer, one of my favorite NBA writers. Always appreciate his time. Stops by today, courtesy of our friends at Uinta Golf. At Uinta Golf, it's the new Ping Scottsdale Tech putters. The new mallets introduce IQ alignment technology inspired by eye-tracking research. Each model improves your focus to sink more putts. Visit Uinta Golf by Worldwide Golf. Get there. Your PGA Tour update looks like this. PGA Tour is at the Cadillac Championship this week down in Miami. And Cameron Young, have a day, young man, 64. Leader in the clubhouse at 8 under par. Jordan Spieth and Alex Smalley are 7 under. Alex Putnam, Brian Harmon, Gary Woodland, Aldrich Potgieter, Nick Taylor, and Ricky Fowler are all at 4 under par. All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Stormy Bonatoni joins us coming up next. We'll do some hockey and some college football with her, and then we'll go from there. Busy Thursday show. Keep it here on ESPN 700. She's here because she's doing sidelines for the game tomorrow. Is that right? Or no. Yeah, it's tomorrow. Is that right? Tough one last night for this young Utah Mammoth team. Maybe seeing a little bit of the inexperience popping up, a couple of leads over the past two games, but Vegas is not going anywhere. They're up 3-2. We know our next guest from her college football coverage, but she'll be in town with ESPN for the game tomorrow. Stormy Bonatoni on a Thursday. Hello, Stormy. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate the time. So 3-2, and man, this series has been incredible. Very competitive, very close. What do you make of the first 5 games of Mammoth Vegas so far?
Yeah, it's been very back and forth, which honestly, the majority of the Stanley Cup playoffs that we've seen so far in the first round have been exciting and close. And I mean, the margin of victory, the closest game we've seen in this series has been a 2-goal difference. We've seen 2 games, the last 2, go to overtime. They've nearly played an entire other game with what we've seen the last couple nights in this series. And I expect it to be a coin flip again tomorrow and potentially game 7 of this thing. So for Vegas, I think to go from down 2 games to 1 to now take this 3-2 series lead, you put it really well, I think, in your lead in saying the experience maybe showing up a little bit for Vegas. I know that Andre Tourney has kind of tried to quiet down that youth first experience narrative a little bit. And I get it, right? You have 5 Stanley Cup winners on your team. There is experience there. But for a Vegas team that comes in with the second most postseason experience of any team, they won a cup with this core a couple years ago. It felt like, to me at least, in certain areas, whether it be the killer instinct at the end of the third period in overtime or drawing Utah into some undisciplined penalties that showed up, like Logan Cooley, for example, seemed like he had a challenge maybe channeling some of his emotions early in that game. That has kind of shown up these last couple games. Now, will it continue?
Yeah, and, I understand Coach Torney trying to tamp that down a bit, but, you have to kind of accept the reality. Vegas has 11 players with 14 combined Stanley Cups, and John Tortorella has been around forever. Do you feel like the Mammoth have a clear advantage anywhere? Does anything in that direction stand out to you?
Yeah, I think 5-on-5, which is probably a little bit unfortunate for them that special teams has played the role that it has in this one. And that's why I think it's important to bring up those undisciplined penalties that have played a role yet again in this one, because 5-on-5, they have looked like the better team for larger periods of this thing. And they look so fast out there. I mean, that's where the youth is really on your side, the speed that the Mammoth have played with. But from a special teams point, and I find this interesting because Vegas and Torts were so upset and frustrated with their special teams midway through the series. I mean, he's shaken up the power play units like 5 times, I feel like, in the last couple games. But they break through with a power play goal and a shorthanded goal last night. And when you look through the numbers, Vegas this series has now outscored Utah on Utah's own power play because they have 2 shorthanded goals now, and Utah's 1 of 14 with the man advantage. So that's something, to me, I'm really curious to see what kind of tweaks they can make to get that corrected and get the most out of their power play, because they've done such a good job 5-on-5. You're not going to have success when you're letting the other team score when you have an extra skater on the ice.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing that has stood out a little bit is the first couple of games. Vegas does not have the MO of being like a big, tough, strong, physical team. They're not soft by any measure, but it looked like Vegas was intentional to try to bring physicality and what I perceive to be a little bit of a bullying attitude to this young Mammoth team. And the Mammoths just showed, like, we're not playing that game with you. And you referenced Logan Cooley. I did feel like it was a matter of time before that young man was going to get got, just because he has been so aggressive. He looks like he's 12, doesn't look like he could fight his way out of a wet paper bag, but he's in every single scrum. But I've noticed, Stormy, that Vegas has kind of gone away a little bit from the overt physicality. Do you feel like that's because they realized that that's not going to be effective against the Mammoth?
Potentially, and especially I remember game one looking at Vegas really trying to establish that, like, hey, we're going to come in here, we're going to have high hit numbers, we're going to show you that we can be physically dominant and heavy. And Utah, to your point, not backing down, and they haven't all series, kind of coming with this attitude of we're not going to be bullied, we're not going to allow that. I'm curious what that's going to look like now that we're to this point where it's a win or go home game. And like I said, Vegas, I think, has done a good job kind of baiting Utah into getting into a little bit of trouble. So if they can maintain some of that composure a little bit more, I think that'll be really important for them. But I've been extremely impressed with the fact that Utah came in here and said, I don't care that we're younger. I don't care that we're going to be doubted. We're going to show you what we're capable of, and stood up to the challenge at every turn.
Who do you think has the advantage? I feel like if I asked this a couple of games ago, it would have been obvious. But the advantage in goal, because Vejmelka's been more or less pretty solid all year long. And look, when with these playoff series, it's understandable if fatigue is setting in, especially if you go a couple of overtimes. But ultimately, I feel like, and it's interesting to consider on the Golden Knights side of things, like their backup goalie is the one who won the Stanley Cup for them. And really, it was Tortorella who made the change. But who do you think has the advantage in between the pipes right now?
Well, I don't know, to be honest with you. My gut says Karel Vejmelka, especially just given the experience that he's had throughout the course of the regular season. I mean, his 38 wins in the regular season were second most in the NHL, behind Andrei Vasilevsky, who's up for another Vezina this year. And he had played more games than anybody. And yet Carter Hart, when he came back from his injury, he had really solid numbers when he came back, and since John Tortorella took over, and he has this connection with Torts going back from their days in Philly, that there's this innate trust there that even though Carter has at times struggled the last couple games, I mean, he's given up 4 goals 3 straight games now in this series, and you want to ask Torts, especially after the game where you guys had 12 shots on goal and 4 goals that went through in that time. Why didn't you think or consider potentially making a change when we've seen so many other series this year make changes? I mean, look at Buffalo, what they did with Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen and Alex Lyon. And we've seen a handful of these make a change and make a pull, and he didn't, because he has so much trust in Carter being able to work his way out of things. And then you see an overtime and a 2 overtime performance like you get from Carter Hart in this last game, and you go, okay, well, maybe that's why Torts feels the way that he does. And he has stepped up in critical moments when you've needed it, even when he's let in a couple of soft goals. So I like Karel Vejmelka's game. I know that he is better than he's shown in these last 2, but he's also played a lot and has a team in front of him that needs to help him out in some of those critical moments as well. I know that you end up scoring 4 unanswered goals back in game 4, but you can't go down 3-0 either and expect to win those games.
Do you have a feel for how this is going to play out? I honestly have zero clue. Before the series, I felt like it was going to be tough because the Mammoth are just so young and hadn't been together in a postseason experience. Then they win game 3. I'm like, all right, well, maybe they get it in 6. And now I just have zero clue how the rest of the thing is going to go.
Yeah, I wish that I had a good answer for you. And I think sometimes I've told you this before with college football when I've come on talking about whether it's Utah or BYU, that I think I struggle having a read on my own series or my own games because I get so deep in the weeds about it, and I'm talking to coaches and players, and I get lost in the sauce, believing everything that they tell me. I think I saw the best thing, Johnny Lazarus of Daily Faceoff. He tweeted this last night, and I completely agree with it, and I think the exact same thing. He said he had Vegas in 6 before it started, as did I. He said after game 2, I had Utah in 6. This series might need 9 games. It's just like it really is a coin flip, and it feels similar to what we have with Montreal, Tampa right now, what we have with Minnesota, Dallas right now. I do a lot of work in the betting space as well, hosting the radio show that I host on VSiN, and I'm shocked that any of these games are priced over like a minus 130 one way or the other, because it doesn't feel like there's a definitive advantage. Even home ice hasn't mattered that much in many cases.
How many jobs do you have, Stormy?
Too many.
Yeah.
Too many.
Well, I asked because I just took a TV job and I'm complaining because I'm a baby. I feel like you have 5 jobs and I have 2.
Oh, no. Come on. The more jobs, the better. We're going to have fun. I actually think you'll like this, or maybe, we'll see. When I did game 4 of this series, and I know it ended up being a Vegas win and a Utah loss. However, the comments were so funny on my post about working the game, because there was half of the community, I felt like, in Utah that was very upset that I live in Vegas and had previously worked for the Golden Knights in another one of my jobs at one point in my life. And then the other contingent that was like, no, but guys, Utah and BYU always wins when she's on the sideline. So it's good juju to have her in Utah. There is like a crazy run of BYU wins and covers for any betting people out there. When I have worked their games, I've gotten a lot of very nice tweets whenever I work a BYU game, because they always seem to win.
Good. I like that. And I know you got to go, so I will take advantage of the remaining couple of minutes to ask you a college football question, because you were in town last year on the sidelines for a Utah game. It was lovely to meet you in person finally after interviewing you for all these years. And I don't know if you heard, Stormy, but Kyle Whittingham lives in Ann Arbor now. And there's a new man in charge, and we all love Morgan. I think he's ready for the moment, and I hope Kyle does great things. What did you make of the coaching switch here in Salt Lake?
I was very surprised, just because I thought that if Kyle Whittingham was done being the head coach at Utah, that it meant retirement. And his initial announcement that he was going to be done with Utah and kind of leaving that door open felt very bizarre to me. And then you start kind of reading the tea leaves and hearing rumors. And when it ended up being Michigan is available and open, and who better to kind of weather the storm of the chaos that's been there than a guy who's had such a steady hand like Kyle Whittingham is. I get it, but it definitely threw me for a loop in the moment, because I just think of him as so tried and true as the guy in Utah. That said, yes, you are dead on about Morgan Scally. I know that he is beloved. He has been masterful with coaching the defense for years and years and years. He's waited his turn for a long time. He's been in that head coach in waiting role. It feels like forever. It was inevitable that it was going to come, and now is his time. So I'm excited to see what he's able to do with this program.
Stormy, thank you for the time. You're going to love the Delta Center hockey experience. I was there for game 3. It's a lot of fun, so enjoy it and travel safe, okay?
Thank you so much. Can't wait to get out there. I know the building's going to be buzzing. Hope to see you guys around while I'm out there. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
All right, Stormy Bonatoni. You can follow her on social media. At Storm Bonatoni is her Twitter handle. Yeah, she does a lot of college football in the fall and then doing a lot of NHL right now. I appreciate her time. That is brought to you today by our friends at IFA Country Stores. There's nothing like taking in a game on a sunny afternoon. You can get your field ready this summer with IFA's 4+ lawn care program. It's a blend especially formulated for Utah soils. Get healthy, lush, dark green grass this summer by making your power move today only at IFA. Switching gears here. Porter, did you see the comments made by Draymond Green concerning Steve Kerr?
I may have missed that.
Okay.
What do we got here?
All right, so I just wanted to take a couple minutes here to dig into this a little bit, because ultimately, I think players like Draymond, I've always believed you need a guy like that on a team in the NBA to win trophies, to win championships. I love the way Draymond Green plays basketball. And look, I came up with, Charles Oakley, Anthony Mason, New York Knicks. I want a little bit of an irritant that actually raises the intensity level of his teammates. And defensively, in this generation, Draymond will go down as one of the top probably 3 defensive players of this generation. Zach Lowe used to refer to him as a genius defensively. And in his heyday, in his prime, ultimately he would blow up like 2 to 3 different actions on each offensive set alone. He could hedge on pick and roll, recover. He could get out, guard perimeter. He was never a great rim protector, but he would get down and bang with big guys. The effect Draymond Green has on a basketball game defensively as an individual is undeniable. And I've always kind of stood up for him. I was always kind of a Draymond guy, but he's lost me a little bit over the past few years for a few different reasons. So, look, all these guys have podcasts now. And the main reason I want Aaron Rodgers to come back and play NFL football so he doesn't start a podcast. I don't want to see those clips surfacing and floating around. And for whatever reason, because there's this whole storyline right now about what's next for the Warriors. And Steve Kerr is out of contract. And, if you're Steve Kerr, can you talk yourself into Steph Curry at this age, Draymond Green at this age, Kristaps Porzingis and Jimmy Butler, who haven't been healthy in quite some time? Can you talk yourself into those 4 players with, a Brandon Pajemski and maybe a couple of additions, maybe some of their youth starts to play a little bit better? Can you talk yourself into that group? The Santos kid had a pretty good second half of the season. Al Horford's on the roster. Gary Payton II, DeAnthony Melton. Can you talk yourself into that group in order to come back and coach for another couple of years? Now, Steve, for the past 2 years, has been the highest paid coach in the NBA. I don't know that he would exist in that space anymore, but I'm quite sure he would not want to take a pay cut because nobody wants to take a pay cut. But make no mistake, there's a narrative that Draymond Green gets picked on by NBA officials. Do not believe that for a second. There is no merit to that. If you've ever been to a Golden State Warrior basketball game, if you've ever been down close to the action, I stand by what I'm about to say. If the officials called the game to the letter of the law, Draymond Green would be ejected from every single game he plays in. I'm not kidding. Every single game he plays in, he's either barking at an official, barking at an opponent, and you can read the lips as far as what he's saying. Draymond Green, to me, gets more benefit of the doubt than any player in pro basketball. The narrative that he's picked on by refs is wild if you've ever watched it. So what Draymond usually does is, after a game, he rolls home. I think it's Colin Cowherd's podcast network that Draymond's on, fires up his podcast stuff, and boom, gives you the stuff, gives you the take. It's a cool ecosystem in a way because players for so long have treated post-game press conferences as just an irritant. They're annoyed to do it. And I get it. I've said this quite a bit. It's a weird thing we do that 2 minutes after a gut-wrenching loss, we stick a microphone in front of coaches and players' face and ask them to be honest and transparent about what just transpired. That would be a difficult thing for me to do. I guarantee I would not handle those situations well. As a competitive person who doesn't like to lose, I don't want to talk about it right after. Like, give me some time. So, in a way, as long as it's handled correctly, the fact that a lot of these athletes have their own platform to express themselves at times can be really interesting if they decide to go about it in an authentic way. But Draymond, for whatever reason yesterday, went on this diatribe about how Steve Kerr held him back throughout the course of his career. I mean, mainly as an offensive player. What could I have really been if I stayed true to my game and who I really was? He basically is accusing Steve Kerr of limiting his offensive potential to encourage him to lean into defense. Well, Draymond, you got a guy named Steph Curry on your team. You got a guy named Klay Thompson on your team. Kevin Durant was on your team once upon a time. When you have those weapons, you're not getting shots. And, by the way, when you do get shots, your three-point percentage is in the 20s. He has no off the bounce game. He's a good passer. He's a good screener. He's a good connector. He's a good offensive player. He's just not a good scorer. He's a great teammate offensively. And he and Steph, that connection, where Draymond he's able to find him whether Steph is cutting or he's fading to the three-point line. Draymond can really pass and move. He can really set screens and move, but you do not want Draymond Green taking 8 threes a night and taking 20 shots a night. That's not winning basketball. And because of what Steve encouraged him to do, Draymond Green has signed, I think, 2 max contracts. His last contract wasn't max because he's getting older. I would make the argument that Steve Kerr did the exact opposite when it comes to affecting Draymond Green's career, encouraging him. When Steve saw how incredible Draymond was defensively and how disruptive he was individually, that became Draymond's deal, okay? And again, when you have, quite literally, either data-driven or just watching basketball games, the greatest shooting backcourt in the history of pro basketball with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson at one point, and then you get potentially the best individual pure scorer of this generation in Kevin Durant. Guess what, Draymond? You are not in line for shots. Andre Iguodala was an all-star in Philadelphia. He went to Golden State, and he saw the deal and was like, yeah, I'll fit in here as a perimeter defensive stopper, and I'll stand in the corner and shoot open threes when the Steph gravity effect allows my defender or forces my defender to kind of hedge in a little bit, and I'm open. I'm fine doing that because I see what's around me. Self-awareness. I can see it around me. All the centers they had over the course of their really good runs, including Andrew Bogut, who played his college basketball here. All those guys willingly set screens for Steph and Klay and Durant and got them open so 3 generationally special scorers could do the bulk of the shooting. That's what you want to have happen. Draymond's won Defensive Player of the Year 3 times. He's been all defensive first team 1,000,000 times, all-star, NBA champ. And I don't know if that is his pathway, if he stuck to what he is claiming to be a dominant offensive game. One of the quotes, when I think of who I was offensively as a player and who I became, I think part of that is due to him. I don't hold that against him. I'm forever grateful that he put me in a position to be successful, that I became Draymond Green. Despite my offensive role in the team, I just feel like he hindered my career a little bit. If I leaned into who I could have been on offense, I think things would have been different. What exactly would have been different? How do you want anything to be different? He said, you think that would hinder someone as an offensive player. So at times I go home and I think about my career and I'm happy as hell. But then there are times I sit there and think, what could I have really been if I stayed true to my game and what I really was? It's pretty clear that I was hindered offensively. Like, what exactly does he think? So if we play this hypothetical that Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Kevin Durant ceded 15 shots a game to Draymond Green, that team is not winning championships.
Right. That is the delusional aspect of, frankly, a lot of athletes that you kind of have to get to that level, right? You are better than the guy next to you and the guy next to him. That's just how you operate. That's how you think. I will say Draymond was and does have some offensive capabilities that you didn't see in Golden State, right? There was a time at Michigan State where he really did run like a point forward type style with them and did it well, averaging 4+ assists a game, I think. But to pretend like that's just something you can pick up and then put in the NBA is silly. The only circumstance in which Draymond could have, however you want to discuss it, shown his full offensive prowess at the NBA level would have been on a really bad team that doesn't have any other offensive options, right? And yeah, if you want to go put up 19 points and 6 rebounds and 4 assists a game at a Washington Wizards and never win a title, never sniff a title, okay, that's maybe another pathway that your career could have gone. But as you said, his career was only enhanced by being on a team with generational offensive players so that he could focus on what is clearly his greatest strength as a basketball player, which is on the defensive side of the ball. And the funny part is that when you're on a team with Klay Thompson, with Steph Curry, with Kevin Durant, the spacing that those guys provide makes it really easy on you on offense in a lot of ways. And I remember times, Spence, when Team's defensive strategy against the Warriors was let him shoot. Let that guy shoot it every time down the floor. We'll double Steph Curry. We will force the ball out of Kevin Durant's hands. We will face guard Klay Thompson in the corner of the floor so he cannot touch the basketball. And Draymond, go ahead and shoot it. There was a reason that teams employed that strategy. It's pretty silly. Again, you could have maybe been a little bit better offensively, or at least shown more offensively, but it would have been on a bad team that didn't have any other options.
I'm thinking about this through the prism of, because to your point, I always call it the Sharif Abdul-Rahim theory. For old school NBA fans, you'll remember him in Vancouver when the Grizzlies were a thing, and Sharif Abdul-Rahim for years was like a 20-10 guy for a team that won like 15 to 18 games every year. And it's like, okay, I think he's good, but what does it look like for a team that's trying to win? And then he went to the Spurs, and he was the 6th or the 7th man on a good team, because that's who he is for a team that's trying to win. But when you look at, so Draymond's college stats, okay? 10 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists for his career. He shot 36% from 3 and 46% from the floor. And he was an excellent college player. He was Conference Player of the Year, senior year. I mean, first team All-American Big Ten Player of the Year in 2012. He was an awesome college player. And when you look at his NBA stats, career stats, 8 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 44% from the floor, 32% from 3. I would make the argument that Draymond Green's career was absolutely maxed out as a result of what Steve asked him to do and Draymond's willingness to do it. Up until today, I didn't even know there was any debate because he was so dynamic as an individual. Dude, I'm telling you, when they were at their peak, when it was like 16, 17 Golden State Warriors, Draymond Green individually would blow up 3 or 4 different actions every half-court set by himself. I'm not knocking on who he is as a player. I'm just confused as to what he wanted this to look like as opposed to what it actually did look like. He's going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's just some confusion on his part about what his, I guess, ceiling might have been. I don't know. It doesn't really surprise me because that's just who Draymond seems to be.
Yeah.
But it surprises me in the fact that he played his role so well.
Yeah.
That I didn't think there was any confusion about his role.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now I'm actually wanting to picture what that would have looked like if Draymond walked into practice. He's like, hey, Steph, Klay, Durant, KD, bring it in.
Right.
Steve, come over. I've decided that even though you're Steph Curry, even though you're Klay Thompson, even though you're Kevin Durant, I need more shots on this team. Can you imagine the reaction of like Steph Curry, the greatest shooter in the history of the game, Kevin Durant, the best individual pure scorer of this generation? They would have looked at him sideways like, what are you talking about? We'll handle the shooting, pal. You go ahead and guard and set screens.
And it also brings up in my imagination what it would look like if what he's kind of alluding to was a reality. Let's say he gets drafted to the Washington Wizards, and for 15 years, he's their best 1 or 2 players. Maybe he's their number 1 option at a time, right after John Wall decides to hang it up. That's not going to be a very good basketball team. And if Draymond is taking 15, 20 shots a game, yeah, he could probably average 15, 20 points a game, but it's not going to look great. And the spacing is going to be off. And the pace that the Warriors played with is not going to be there. It is a little bit of a misunderstanding of how good he's had it in what is basically like basketball utopia in Golden State.
Yeah, the brilliant thing about that team when it was at its peak is that everybody knew exactly what they were asked to do and accepted their roles brilliantly. The Iguodala reference, I mean, he was an all-star in Philadelphia. He was close to a 20-point-per-game guy. He turned into this lockdown perimeter defensive player and a role player on offense because it worked, because they won championships. He won a finals MVP. He shouldn't have, but he did. It's weird, man. It's like, what if Gobert was like, hey, I don't think I should be blocking shots anymore. I'm going to go ahead and do away with I don't want to block shots anymore because I really would like to be a pick and pop big to start shooting threes.
Give me one season, because I would love to see it. Ben Wallace is your number one offensive option. Like ISO ball, bring the ball down the floor. The things that Draymond is kind of alluding to. Give me Ben Wallace in that role.
Yeah.
I just want to see it.
Yeah, I remember the Jazz social media team used to, they would send out a video every summer of Rudy hitting corner threes.
Yep, every time.
I'm like, stop doing that. I would text Gardenia. I'm like, dude, you need to stop sending those videos out. You're just encouraging him, and all these Jazz fans are like, hey, stretch five, Rudy. No. He should be blocking shots and rebounding and catching lobs, and that's all. And when he does that, he's incredibly effective. You have to know your role, and you have to accept it.
Now, to be clear, if Rudy could do that at a proficient level, Brook Lopez, you put another 3-4 years on your career. But that's a different story.
Well, there's a guy who can do that, who's Gobert size. He just plays in San Antonio.
Unbelievable.
He's terrifying.
Watching that guy.
All right, well, catch.
Health.
Yeah.
It's the only thing.
Yep.
Ankles, knees, those are the only thing that'll get in the way.
Please let him stay healthy because he is unbelievable. We're talking about Victor Wembanyama, not Harrison Barnes, if you were confused. All right, we're going to bring in Carlos Mauricio Ramirez. Does a great job for Apple TV to do some RSL a little bit later on. We also have Sports Court, busy show, Thursday Drive. Keep it here on ESPN 700. had one of my favorite remotes that I've ever had last week. You probably have heard of Epic Brewing, but you do not know what they have done to their space. So it's still the same spot, State Street, where you at one point they were the only place we could go on Sundays to get any beer. You probably know exactly where it is, but they have opened up the back space with a bar expansion. They now have a patio where you can play pickleball when the sun is shining. They've got a bunch of really cool TVs so you can watch all the games. And my buddy Ryan from Epic is in studio. What's up, man? How are you?
Pretty good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So before we get to the beers that you brought today, let's just talk about the space. I mean, you know, our sales guy, my guy had told me that you guys had done this renovation.
Yeah.
I was blown away. I mean, I think it looks awesome. Tell us about what you've done at Epic.
Yeah, you know, we're kind of blown away, too. It's amazing how much space we had back there. But the Brewers gave us some space to build a bar back there. And back in the big warehouse, we rearranged the tanks back there. We literally built a new bar, like, back in the warehouse. And it's really nice. It's a great space. It's comfortable. It's cozy. We have a patio. We have these huge doors that open, like, fully up to the patio. We've got a huge TV in there to watch games.
Mm-hmm.
We have draft beer for the first time ever at Epic, which some
Yeah.
of the brewers are super excited about, getting to brew some, like, low-alcohol beers, because usually we're just doing, like, the really strong stuff. And, yeah, everybody needs to come check it out. It's a totally different experience at Epic.
So 825 South State Street. Just put that address in your GPS. There's a big Epic sign out front. You can't miss it. But if you're accustomed to the old Epic Brewing experience where you just walk in the front room and there are fridges there where you can get beer, they still have that. But you take a right, and it's almost like this speakeasy feel, Ryan. You don't even really know what you're about to see until you walk back there, and you're like, dude, I didn't even know this existed.
Yeah. And it didn't a couple of weeks ago. We just opened, and that was kind of the thing. We wanted to create an experience for people maybe a little bit unexpected, because you kind of walk through the brewery a little bit on the way back. There you have a hallway that's wide open. You see the tanks and everything, and then you walk into a room that is completely different than what it's like in the front of Epic.
You can also go to epicbrewing.com, but again, the address is 825 South State Street, downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. And I want to say Jamie mentioned that you're the only spot where you can sample some of your High Point beers. Is that true?
That is true. Well, I don't know if we're the only spot, but we're definitely one of few.
Okay.
Where we have a lot of, like, really, really high alcohol beers that we have to sell in cans and bottles. Some are in 22-ounce bottles, but we'll open up any of those bottles and do a 4-ounce taster if you just want to sample something.
And that's a new thing, yeah?
Yeah, well, no, it's not a new thing for us.
Oh, okay.
We've always been doing it. It's kind of been our shtick over at Epic for a while, being able to come over and, like, taste these, like, full, you know, high alcohol beers. We're at a bar. I mean, they're expensive beers. You know, you might be paying like $20-$30 for a bottle of beer if we're selling it for the whole thing, but we'll open it up for you for $6 and you can taste it. And yeah, it's fun. We have, you know, over 50 different kinds of beers over there, so you can come in and do like a full tasting and taste like a lot of different kinds of beers.
So I guess, I don't know much about your industry. I'm putting two and two together. The reason why most people don't want to do that is because they don't want to waste the whole can or bottle, right? You got to buy the whole thing.
Yeah, a little bit of beer goes down the drain for us, and it's not the best for margins, but it's the best for the customer experience.
And that's what makes you guys the best, man. That's why you've always I feel like that's kind of been your company ethos, like whatever's best for your consumer, because you're always taking care of people.
We do what we can. Yeah, for sure. It's kind of like, who cares about what the liquor? Well, we care about the Utah liquor laws.
Yeah,
but
you have to.
We don't make beer based on the Utah liquor laws. You know, we make beer how we want to make it, and then we sell it, how we can here in Utah.
So ultimately, you've got beer on tap and back, and you still have the High Point beer that you've always had. Yeah. And you also have some menu options, right? Because that's kind of a mandate. You have to be serving some food. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
So years ago, we just had a restaurant license, so we had to serve food. You had to eat food to drink beer at Epic. Mm-hmm. And we serve panini sandwiches.
Yeah.
Years later, we got a bar license. The paninis kind of went away. But with this new bar expansion, we brought them back. And so we've got the panini press, and we're making sandwiches back there. And yeah, I encourage you guys to come down for lunch and like grab a sandwich. It's
nice.
An awesome lunch spot.
I'll remind you, 825 South State Street, right downtown Salt Lake City, our friends at Epic Brewing. All right, tell me about some of the events you've got coming up, watch parties and such.
Yeah, so we're doing a Mammoth watch party tomorrow night. Tough break last night. I actually went to bed before it was over. Embarrassing.
Ryan!
Enough. I know.
Come on, man.
Gosh dang it.
You got to stay up. Well, it's double overtime. That got late.
It got kind of late.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's kids. I don't know. It was tough.
For sure.
I didn't make it.
All good.
But no, tomorrow night we're doing a Mammoth watch party. Bad Boy Burgers food truck's going to be at Epic. We're having Mike Feldman's going to come play music. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Feldman's Deli.
For sure.
He is the owner of Feldman's Deli.
I know Mike. I didn't know Mike was a musician.
I didn't know that either, but he moonlights as a musician, so he's coming to play at Epic tomorrow.
You guys should do a partnership with those sandwiches. Mike makes a hell of a sandwich.
Oh, some of the best in town. Yeah, they're awesome.
That's cool. Very cool. Okay, so keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, so that's tomorrow night. And then on Saturday, we're doing a Kentucky Derby watch party. We've got some betting games set up where it's free to enter. We have epic prizes, gift cards, and stuff like that. And then we're also giving away a prize for the best Kentucky Derby attire. So really, the bigger the hat, the better.
Very cool. All right, tell me about the beers you brought. Now, not to harsh your mellow. I know beers with Bill, he would start chugging on air. I don't drink when I'm doing the radio show, so we're gonna keep them in the cans. But what tell me what you brought today?
So I brought 3 beers out. The first one is a one-off beer that we released on 420. We do a 420 beer every year. The last couple of years, they've been Grateful Dead-themed beers.
Mm-hmm.
This one is called We're Grateful, kind of a tribute to Bob Weir, who passed away this year. 7% alcohol, super dank, like real earthy, kind of smells like there's cannabis in there, but there's not.
Okay.
Super tasty beer. Second beer is an horchata cream ale, kind of a dessert-style Mexican beer. Great drink for Cinco de Mayo coming up. It's light and sweet. It's not really like a sticky sweet beer. You could drink a bunch of them. It's low alcohol, but it's light in flavor. And then the third beer I brought is called Epic 2 1/4. Non-alcoholic beer is a big thing these days.
Is it really?
A lot of people are drinking non-alcoholic beer.
Huh.
It's not really our thing.
Yeah.
But we understand the people that are drinking it, people that want something that's low calorie, low carb, or you're maybe not going to get hammered off drinking 2 beers.
Sure.
So we have this new beer that's called 2 1/4. That's the alcohol percentage is 2 1/4 ABV on the beer. So there is a little bit of alcohol in there. Low calorie, low carb, like all that stuff, kind of for the health conscious drinker. And great lunchtime beer. I'm actually going to open one of these right now.
Yeah, please do. Go right ahead. I wonder, because ooh, that sounded nice. Well done. I wonder. You got to hear your pour too. There we go. I wonder how, because it is interesting. It does feel like the younger generation is not drinking alcohol as much as prior generations. Do you have any data to back that up? I mean, do you guys feel like you run into that as a brewery?
Yeah,
really?
Totally.
Yeah.
I don't have any hard data to back that up. I know it's real. It's a real thing. I think, college kids, I don't drinking alcohol is not what it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of what this 2 1/4 beer came from too. I think people aren't, as into, catching a heavy buzz as they used to be, or at least the younger crowd.
Right. Yeah, you see a lot of mocktails flying around. It's like big business now.
Yeah, totally a big business. Mocktail. I mean, there's even bars. I don't think they have any in Utah yet, but I've heard of bars that don't have alcohol. Like everything is non-alcoholic. It's a mocktail bar. It's like an NA beer bar and stuff like that.
No, there's a couple in Manhattan. There's a couple in New York. And actually, it's a bar that I used to go to when I lived back there that now is no longer serving alcohol. They just serve mocktails.
And it's busy, right?
It's really busy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess to each their own, right? All right, Epic Brewing is the spot. It is 825 South State Street, downtown Salt Lake. My guy, Ryan, what's your favorite Epic beer? If you had to pick one beer you guys brew over there, which one would it be?
Oh, it's a tough question. I get asked that a lot.
Really? Is it one of the Brainless? I feel like you guys are most famous for the Brainless.
The Brainless, we may be the most famous for in Utah, but kind of nationally, like even internationally, we make a beer called the Big Bad Baptist.
Okay.
It's a whiskey barrel aged imperial stout, ranges between 12 to like 15% alcohol, and that is the beer that Epic is the most known for. If someone walks in the door at Epic who's from, I don't know, Kentucky or somewhere like that, they know about the Big Bad Baptist.
Okay.
And that's probably my favorite beer. There's a time and a place for it. It's a tough one to drink when it's hot out. I almost drink it like I drink a whiskey. You do like a small pour of it and just kind of like nip on it because the beer is really strong and wildly flavorful. But yeah, it's a great drink.
12 to 15%.
It's strong. It drinks like a wine. You kind of got to treat it like a whiskey or treat it like a wine more so than you treat this 2 1/4 beer.
How did you get into this? And have you always been with Epic? How'd you get into the industry? What's your background there?
I've been with Epic for close to 12 years.
Cool.
And Epic's been around for about 15. So I've been there since pretty close to the beginning.
Okay.
But you know how I got into beer was, before Epic even existed, I homebrewed.
Oh, okay.
Because the beer selection here in Utah just wasn't great.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s, like there wasn't much. Like, I don't know if you remember, like Anglers, like
Sure.
Uinta used to make it. It was like the, higher alcohol cutthroat beer.
Yeah.
The Squatters had an IPA. I can't remember what it was called. It was pretty good. And there was like Sierra Nevada, and that was like it.
Yeah.
And we homebrewed to make beer that we liked. I moved to Portland for a girl who's now my wife. So
Congratulations, it worked out.
Yeah,
that's good.
And I worked at Widmer Brothers. I'm sure people that are like our age are familiar with that place. It's a big brewery in Portland, Oregon. But I was a brewery tour guide there, and that's kind of how I got into beer. And then came back to Utah and had a buddy that worked at Epic who brought me on, and here I am. I'm still here.
So do you do any of the brewing at all? I mean, or do you leave that to the guys that's their kind of their full-time gig?
I leave that to the guys who is their full-time gig.
Because there's an art to that, isn't there? Like,
fully, yeah. It's not an easy thing to do, especially
for sure.
Like consistency and high-quality beer. But our head brewer is named Clay. He's awesome. He takes care of all the brewing. I'd like to say I have a little bit of input about the styles that we're brewing, but really it's up to them, to make the beer that we have and to keep everything fresh and to keep everything. The consistency is a hard part about brewing. You can come and you can brew a nice beer, but to like replicate that is really the most challenging part in brewing beer.
I know nothing about it. I've never attempted it. I have a couple of buddies who fancy themselves as guys that like to do it at home.
Yeah.
To mixed results is what I would say.
Yeah.
What's like the biggest key to? How do you make it as consistent as you guys do? Any insight there?
Some people say that brewing beer's like a glorified cleaning job. I think you spend 70% of the time cleaning. Like that's like the most important thing, making sure everything's clean and sanitized and stuff like that. And then, the other part of it's being creative and brewing beer, but keeping stuff clean, really being like over the top, like really, really good at keeping everything clean.
See, I just find it so interesting, again, without any knowledge of how this process works. I think most people just assume like beer is beer. And then you walk in and look in your fridge and you guys have like a peach situation going on, right? I mean, there's so many different things that are intertwined in the process and a bunch of different flavors that you actually can get involved that I had no idea that was even possible.
Yeah, we really try to have something for everybody.
Yeah.
Like I give brewery tours at the brewery often, and especially for like bars and restaurants. And I'll let the bar owner bring in his wife who maybe doesn't like beer or anyone who doesn't like beer.
Yeah.
And I almost take that as a challenge. I'm just like, do you like coffee? They're like, oh yeah, I love coffee. I'm like, well, check out this coffee beer that we have.
Yeah.
And our head brewer Clay actually makes the coffee at his house. Like he actually roasts the coffee at his house for our Son of a Baptist beer. Or some people like wine, and like that peach beer that you brought up. We age it in white wine barrels, and it takes on these kind of like wine and like almost like champagne like style of flavors. And like the Brainless Belgian beer, like you brought up, also is a really unique beer. It doesn't taste like Bud Light, and it doesn't taste like a bitter beer face like hoppy IPA.
Yeah.
It's something totally different. And so I feel like I can almost always find a beer for the person who says they don't like beer that they can come to Epic and drink. It's pretty cool.
You have a few different IPAs, right?
We do. We have we have a lot of different IPAs.
Yeah, because IPAs are interesting. Like if something's off just a little bit, it tastes like tree bark oftentimes. I find an IPA process pretty fascinating.
And sometimes they're supposed to taste like tree bark too. Like it depends.
Fair enough.
Depends on the hops.
Fair enough.
Depends on the hops you use. Some IPAs, like our Chasing Ghost IPA, is like really, really like citrusy and kind of like soft on the palate.
Yeah.
Where we have a beer called Space Debris, and kind of the goal of that beer was to brew an IPA like people drank in like the late 90s, kind of like an old time IPA. And that one does taste a little bit more like tree bark. I like to describe it as more of like piney and like resiny compared to like some like citrus flavors of these like more modern IPAs. And it's fun what you can do with hops, because a lot of these beers, the whole process is almost exactly the same. And we're using different varieties of hops, and they create like wildly different flavors in the beer. And that is a really fun thing for our brewers to experiment with, different hops from different regions. And it's almost like wine and like different grapes from different regions.
Yeah.
Give it a different taste, and like hops are very similar to that.
How big, you referenced your international reputation. How big is the footprint now? Do you have locations in other, you guys just closed the one in Colorado, right?
So yes, we closed in Colorado about 2 years ago.
Okay.
So there was a time when Epic was full growth, and we started in Salt Lake City. We opened the Colorado location.
Uh-huh.
I think we were in maybe 40 states across the country.
Oh, okay.
And we would ship beer, all over the world internationally.
Yeah.
And then things in craft beer changed a little bit. COVID happened. We ended up closing Denver, which was tough. Like, we didn't want to close the brewery. We actually had to make a choice. Like, we took a look at everything, and are we going to be in Denver, or are we going to be in Salt Lake City?
Yeah.
And we chose Salt Lake City. And since then, we can't brew as much volume beer as we used to be able to. So those places in the Midwest, on the East Coast, we used to send beer there once a month. We send it to it there once a year now.
Mm-hmm.
And the focus is really Salt Lake City. And like, that's kind of where the idea for the bar expansion came from. We really want to focus on Salt Lake City, where we started. And that's kind of what we're doing now. And like, new beers that we're making, like, they're focused, to sell in Utah. And no, it's fun for me. I don't have to travel as much. I got little kids.
For sure. No, I'm glad you chose us. Denver's got enough breweries, man. They don't need another one.
Denver's fine.
We need it here is what we need, Ryan.
I know. And we all like it better here, too. I swear, not that we had problems that often, but if there was ever a problem, it was always in Denver.
Really?
For whatever reason. I don't
Interesting.
know. Those guys, I don't know what they do in Denver, but it seemed like the problems always started and ended over there. So, but yeah, being back in Salt Lake, I think, is great. I personally enjoy it.
Love it. All right, one more time before I set you loose. Epic Brewing, my guy Ryan is in studio. It's 825 South State Street. I know you've heard of it. I know you think you know what it looks like. You don't. If you haven't been there since the new bar expansion and back, there's a patio. You can play some cornhole. You can hang out and enjoy some beer in the sunshine. The new TVs where you can watch a bunch of different options as far as sports go. Before I set you loose, let's reset the calendar one more time.
Sure.
What do you have coming up?
So yeah, tomorrow night, Mammoth Watch Party. We have Mike Feldman of Feldman Deli playing. I think he plays like some folk and like bluesy kind of music tomorrow night. He'll be playing outside on the patio. Bad Boy Burgers food truck will be at Epic tomorrow. And then on Saturday, Kentucky Derby Watch Party. I'm pretty excited about it. I put together a pretty fun gambling game. Well, it's not. It's legal. It's free.
Yeah,
you can come in, but yeah, you get to pick your horses, and there's some pretty cool prizes for that.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, good to see you, man. Thanks for coming in, okay?
Yeah, thanks for having me down.
I'm telling you, it was one of my favorite remotes that I've ever done last week at Epic Brewing, their new spot, the expanded bar space and back at 825 South State Street, Salt Lake City, Utah. And you can check them out online at epicbrewing.com. ESPN 700 Festival of Tees time, powered by the Utah Golf Association. We're giving away rounds of golf to the best courses in the state. Listen to the Sean O'Connell Show from 11 to 2. Listen to me from 2 to 6 for your chance to win each day from ESPN 700. Details on ESPN700sports.com. Text in right now in honor of Ryan in studio. What's your favorite beer? 877-353-0700, 877-353-0700. We'll send you to golf at Rose Park. Get to catch a break. Carlos Mauricio Ramirez will join us coming up next from Apple TV to do a little soccer. We got Sports Court, then we get to the 5 o'clock hour of the show. Say goodnight at 6 on ESPN 700. Got a little soccer breaking news on the show. RSL has announced that it has extended Noel Caliscan through the 2028-2029 season with a club option for 29-30. Noel has played very well since being acquired. I think it was with Portland back in the day. And speaking of Portland, RSL in action coming up on Saturday as an early kick at 2:45 at America First Field to take on the Portland Timbers. Our next guest will be there, and he's good enough to give us some time on a Thursday afternoon. Carlos Mauricio Ramirez, how are you, sir?
That's great pronunciation. I appreciate. Wow, great. That's great. Perfectly done. Thank you. I'm doing great. Can't be. I can't be happier, to be honest, because every time I get to go, and I use get to go very intently, because when you get to travel and you get to cover the league like we do, getting to go to places like Salt Lake City and Vancouver, while we have them, or Seattle, is just phenomenal, and I can't wait to see the fan base. And it should be a great game. Even though the standings for Portland aren't great, this team, I think, has played better than what the standing says, and it should be a very, very interesting, very fun soccer game on Saturday.
Carlos, I need to ask you about you before we get to the game, because I was doing a little digging. I've got some of your social medias up. You're a pretty impressive guy. Tell our listeners, tell our listeners about yourself, how many jobs you have, your background, and kind of how you got into this industry.
Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words. I don't know if impressive qualifies, but I'll take it. Thank you. I was born and raised in Venezuela. I came to the States when I was a kid. I lived in Boulder, Colorado for a year and a half, then went back to Venezuela. And the thicker part of my career happened there. I began when I was 19 years old doing soccer games in Spanish in Venezuela. Then I moved on to basketball, then baseball. Came to Mexico first. I was hired by a baseball team in Tijuana called the Tijuana Toros to become their media manager and also their radio and TV play-by-play in Spanish. Then I got hired by Telemundo in San Diego. I did both English and Spanish there, sportscasting for the stations. And then 7 years ago, I moved to the Bay Area where I currently reside, and I've done Sunday Night Football in Spanish for Telemundo Network. I did 3 years of sports anchoring for Telemundo. Over the past 4 years with NBC Sports Bay Area in California, hosting A's, Giants, Sharks, and 49ers as well. And this is my third season doing play-by-play for MLS and Apple TV covering the league. So I've been fortunate enough to have what I think is a good career. Hopefully it gets better.
So when you do the NFL stuff, the baseball stuff, are you doing it in both English and Spanish as well?
Yeah, both. I'm one of the hosts of the official NFL podcast in Spanish called Trend Zone. But I also host the 49ers pre- and post-game live shows for NBC Sports Bay Area. That's in English. Last season, the radio play-by-play for the 49ers, my dear friend Greg Papa, who is bravely fighting and battling leukemia, wasn't able to broadcast for the entire season except for the last two games, I think, or last game. And there was a combination of different play-by-play announcers who were called upon to replace and fill in for Greg. And I was lucky enough to be one of them. Lucky, and at the same time, it's bitter because you don't never want a friend of yours to go through what Greg's going through. But he had the kindness in his heart to count me in as one of the people because he got to choose who was going to replace him or fill in for him. So, yeah, I've done both. I do English and Spanish. Yesterday I was hosting. Past 2 days I was in Sacramento hosting for NBC Sports California, A's content in English. And I'll be calling this game on Saturday in Salt Lake City in Spanish.
I can't even fathom how you do this. I mean, it is wild to me. I only do this job in one language, and I'm barely grasping that, pal. I wonder what are the challenges? Like, have you been doing it long enough where, okay, you just compartmentalize and there's no crossover at all? I'm doing this in Spanish tonight. I'm not even worried about it. Okay, I've got to do it in English tonight. Like, what are some of the challenges in being able to do both jobs the way you do?
No, that's a great question. So I think the first one was understanding that there are different sounds in American accent as there are in Spanish accent. And the second one, I'll give you an example. In Spanish, we say the country Canada, we pronounce it Canada. The A sounds similar, Canada. In English, you say Canada. And that first in Canada that sound doesn't exist in Spanish. It just doesn't. So even though I'm fluent in English and I learned as a kid living here in the States, when you come back and you want to sound professional, you want to sound native. I'm an American citizen as well, but you want to work in a market and you want to be true to that market. I think you should do stuff like this. So I went through a whole process of training and learning with coaching and on my own of how to train my face because it's all muscular training in your face, how you pronounce, how your mouth goes, where it should go. Once that's learned and it's ingrained in your body, it's just thinking. The biggest trick is learning how to think in the language. That's when things might get crossed. When you think about a word or a phrase or some terminology that is very specific to one language or the other. But once you get when you get to thinking in the language you're speaking, then it's just like on and off. It's a switch you can just go back and forth.
I wonder how you would articulate. So just for background, I did not grow up as a soccer fan. I did not grow up as a soccer player. I think I played all the sports when I was young, and I think like a lot of guys my age, as soon as I could play American football, I ditched soccer and did that. And right. I've got some connections to the origin of RSL. Namely, my old man was the founder. My dad is the founder of the club. And yeah, it's pretty cool. But I wanted to tell you a story. In 2004, I'm living here in Salt Lake, and he lives back east. I was raised in the Northeast, and he came into town, and he said, "I want to go to lunch. I got something to tell you." So we went to lunch here in Salt Lake, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to lead a group to bring a soccer club to Salt Lake." And I said, "Why would you do such a thing? What a horrible idea." And 22 years later, he clearly was right, and I clearly was wrong. And admittedly, it took me some time to really get it because I'd never watched it before. So much so that we have our first game. And the coach subs out one of our best players. I'm like, we need to get him back in the game. Why are you taking him out? And I didn't even know you couldn't put him back in. Like, once you're out, you're out. I didn't really know the rules very much. I was one that just looked for goals, and that's it. And then if we're not getting goals, I'm not watching. And then I started to really understand the intricacies of it. I got to know some of the players and the coaches and the people in the ecosystem. And it's a sport that's full of a lot of wonderful people. And there's a beauty to the game that takes time to recognize. And I still don't profess to be an expert. And there are still certain sports fans, American sports fans, that if they hear me talking soccer, they decide to get online and attack me because they hate it. And that's fine. Everyone has their own taste. But as you probably know this, last year, Carlos, there was a Gallup poll that was released that indicated now, for the first time in American history, soccer is the third most popular sport. It's still American football 1, basketball 2, but now it's soccer 3, baseball 4, hockey 5, golf 6. Yep. And from your vantage point, I wonder how you've seen this game grow and what you think will happen this summer as the World Cup is being played in our region.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that story. That's astonishing and beautiful at the same time.
Thank you.
In the best of ways. When I came here in 1989, my mom and I came together, and she started buying me these magazines called U.S. Soccer magazines. And mind you, this is 7 years before the birth of Major League Soccer. I came from Venezuela. I played soccer. My entire life. And I was looking for soccer outlets. And it was either football or some, small soccer endeavor or league or something very recreational, nothing really structured, right? So I got to see firsthand and experience the, prehistoric times of soccer in the States before the World Cup, before MLS, when you said U.S. soccer player, people thought you were just making a joke, right? Before memes, that was the pre-meme meme. U.S. soccer player, that doesn't exist. That's a myth. That's Sasquatch. It's a Loch Ness monster. It doesn't exist. Cut to 2026, right? 30 years after the birth of Major League Soccer, 32 years after the World Cup in 1994. And the world is gathered once again here in our country with Canada and Mexico to host the biggest sporting event on the planet. Because, yes, the World Cup is bigger, than the Olympics. There are more countries, more events in the Olympics, but the World Cup is the biggest event on the planet. How do I know this? Why do I say this? Because despite being fewer teams and only one sport, every nation on the planet would die to host the World Cup. The Olympics have become this white elephant of an event that no country wants to host because of what it means and represents financially for the infrastructure of that event to be built and set and hosted. So now you have countries pushing to each, no, you have it. No, you take it. No, you have it. And even though LA will be an amazing experience, there's no burden or very little burden on the city. The World Cup, every single country, there's not a country you could ask, hey, do you want to host a World Cup? That they would say no. That doesn't happen. So my expectation is, one, for the World Cup to do at soccer what the 94 World Cup did to the sport in our country on steroids. What do I mean by that? Now we have Major League Soccer. Now we have soccer-specific stadiums in the country. We have Lionel Messi playing here. We've had this 30-year background of history to build upon. And now here comes the World Cup. And now you have fans, and I pray every single day, I kid you not, I wake up, I meditate, and then I pray, please, dear gods of soccer, let Mauricio Pochettino's side be good on the World Cup. Because this country, our country, we have never experienced what it's like to have a good team in the World Cup get into meaningful situations, meaningful games beyond quarterfinals to reach to a semifinal. Do I think they can do it? No. I hope they can. I hope we get a 2002 South Korea situation where Team USA makes it through and has a phenomenal tournament. But it's something that will capture the imagination and the passion of every single soccer and sports fan on the country. Because back in '94, it was like an afterthought. Wait, what? There's something happening here? Wait, what? Now it's different. Now everyone knows. You got Telemundo in Spanish. I'll be doing that, by the way. You got Fox in English. You have the Women's World Cup and what they've done for the sport. Everyone knows that in 2026 the World Cup will be played here. So it's an exciting time for us who love the country and the sport as well.
Let me follow up with, and I know you referenced you don't think they can make a run. I tend to agree with you. I think it was Jurgen who said the U.S. will never win a World Cup, and everyone was mad. And I'm like, well, I don't know, man. Like, it's I don't know what to expect as far as what this side can do. Lately, it hasn't looked great. We're hoping that Diego gets the call up. We're going to find out on May the 26th. The draw is manageable. The group is manageable. If they don't get out of group, I think that's a disaster. But beyond that, what's a reasonable expectations for the U.S. men's national team this year?
Well, the group is not a cakewalk. Let's put it that way. I think it's one of the most evenly matched groups in the World Cup. We're talking about Team USA, Paraguay, who I know very well. They're a tough team. Australia, who've grown, and we have a couple of the Aussie of the Socceroos playing here at MLS, and then Turkey, who barely made it through the qualifying process in Europe, but still is a very good side. I don't see a clear-cut favorite. It should be Team USA because, well, it's the home field advantage aspect of it. Talent-wise, I do think Team USA has the most talent in the group. No other team. Turkey has Arda Güler, and they have Yildiz from Juventus and Güler from Real Madrid. That's pretty much it in terms of individual talents that stand out. They're a good team, not a great team. Team USA, neither Turkey, Australia, or Paraguay have a player like Christian Pulisic or like Florian Balogun, just to name two. Team Weah is playing at a great level in France. Weston McKennie is a tremendous midfielder. We just saw yesterday, 2 days ago, Johnny Cardozo playing in the midfield in a semifinal of the UEFA Champions League with Atletico de Madrid. So there, plus the players we're seeing here at MLS, the level of Sebastian Berhalter with Vancouver is tremendous. What Anthony Robinson has done with Fulham, so there's a very good team there. I do expect them to go through. I do expect them to go first in their group. And then you just just have to see what happens. It's after that, it's just let's see what happens. Who they could draw a bevy of teams from Group B, E, F, J, or L. I think is the other one. So or I or J. So guessing, it's just a guessing game. After that, the World Cup is a toss-up because one bad foul, rain, a referee makes a mistake, something happens that could just influence and flip the game on its head. But I do think they'll make it through. It's a fascinating group, and I do have good expectations for Team USA. Are they going to win it? Unlikely. Can they win it? Listen, man, I've seen Greece win the Euros back in 2004 when they beat Portugal not once but twice when they were the hosts. So anything can truly happen in soccer. That's my message for soccer fans in Salt Lake is anything can happen. But you got teams like France and Spain and England and Argentina, Brazil, Portugal, who are just, world beaters. But, hey, in 90 minutes, anything can happen. So last thing we're going to lose is hope.
I referenced that Gallup poll. The other portion of it that I found rather eye-opening and somewhat astonishing is if you go on the global scale and ask people around the world what their favorite sport is, 4 billion people say soccer.
Yeah.
For frame of reference, 400 million people say American football. So, of course, football is king in this country, but worldwide, it's really not even close. Soccer is 1, basketball is actually 2, and then you get into some cricket stuff because of how many people overseas love cricket. But I bring that up to kind of ask you to help us understand how significant it was a week ago as Lionel Messi played soccer in Sandy, Utah, which is a sentence I never thought I would ever be able to say. And I was able to go, and look, that experience is all it's cracked up to be, and I don't know that we really fully understand who Lionel Messi is in the soccer ecosystem. Can you help us understand that?
Yeah. Lionel Messi is, let me put it in terms people can, maybe grasp. Those are you who are not soccer fans and don't understand the sport. If you think Shohei Ohtani is good at baseball, Messi's better at soccer. If you think Tom Brady is the GOAT in the NFL, Messi's better. He just is. There is no – now, why do I say that? And granted, Messi won't play until 45 like Brady did. But what Messi does is so much more complicated – or has done, same as Ronaldo, because of how many people on the planet play the sport. So to be the best at football has a significant difficulty. There's the ingrained elements of the violence and the physical aspect of the sport, which I'm not discounting. To get harassed by a guy like Ray Lewis is not fun. To get, being chased by Ronnie Lott or whoever you want to, whatever, J.J. Watt, T.J. Watt, the defender you want, Nick Bosa, whoever. Miles, I couldn't fathom being chased down by the human Hulk like Myles Garrett. But to do what Messi does, how many people play soccer on the planet? It's infinite. It's billions of people play soccer every single day. He is from a country where everyone plays soccer. And I mean everyone. Everyone in Argentina plays the sport. He was a tiny young man who wasn't signed by any major club in his native Argentina because he was too small, too short. And here comes Barcelona and sees the infinite potential and talent in this young Rosario-born man or young man and gives him a contract on a napkin, brings him to Spain with his dad as he was a teenager, younger than a teenager, and they put him through this hormone treatment to enhance his growth. Plus, they put him through the academy, which is the best academy in world soccer, which is La Masia, the FC Barcelona academy. And out comes this mammoth of a player who is 5'9", and isn't this beast of a human. He's not Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who is 6'3", built like a Greek god. He's not LeBron James, who's 6'9", 250, who can bulldoze over everyone. He's 5'9", and he does everything better than anyone and has won everything. La Liga, Ligue 1 in France, Champions League, everything he's played, he's won. There was just one thing missing, the FIFA World Cup. Well, guess what? He won it 4 years ago, was the best player on the tournament, the leading scorer. He did everything. So everything there is to do in a sport that billions of people play, he did. Coming out of a slum, a very impoverished area in Argentina with a genetic or hormone deficiency, here's this guy, the best soccer, in my estimation, the best soccer player ever to lace him on. So that is, I'm biased because I'm a Barcelona fan, and he is the player that's given me more happiness and joy than any other player ever to have kicked a soccer ball. So to have him in our country playing in MLS, and the fact that fans at Sandy, Utah got to see him, it's like seeing Jordan or seeing, Ohtani. It's like unfathomable. And not many people play, not as much people play baseball as they do soccer. Everyone plays soccer. And this guy is the absolute best.
Good stuff there. What came to mind when you were talking about the World Cup, because I had never watched the World Cup. I knew I knew what it was. This is how anti-soccer I was, Carlos, back in 2004 when we brought the team here. And then in 2006, it was the first World Cup after the club arrived. And so I'm like, all right, let's see what this is about. And I remember I sat down to watch the first match, and two rather nondescript teams, and they started playing the national anthem, and the camera pans across the faces of the players, and they are screaming their national anthem at the top of their lungs, and tears are streaming down their cheeks. And I'm like, okay, what? I gotta know what this is about, man. I don't know that I still properly understand how much winning that World Cup meant to him and how much winning a World Cup means to players.
Yeah, man, you touch a nerve because, like I mentioned in the beginning of the interview, I was born and raised in Venezuela, and we have never played a World Cup, a seniors World Cup, because there's U20s, U7, that's under 20s, under 17s. We've played a couple of those. We're going to play our third consecutive U17s World Cup in Qatar. This year, we played a couple of U20 World Cups. Venezuela, 10 years ago, was a final. We lost the finals to England back in 2017. So we've done good in youth championships, but we've never played the actual, the grown-ups World Cup, to put it some way. And when I left Venezuela 9 years ago, I didn't go back because of the political situation and landscape in Venezuela. And the thing that I love the most ever to do is call a soccer match of Venezuela. Qualifiers, Copa America, you name it. That's a different level, right? It's like me calling a Team USA game that I hope to do at some point. I've never done it as an American citizen. So I was away from the country for almost 8 years. I hadn't called a Venezuelan national team game or match in over 10 years, because even when I was there, the station that I used to work for before I left the country didn't have the rights. So it was about an 8-year window where I didn't get to call the Venezuelan national team. And before I left, I was calling every single game they played for the biggest outlets in Venezuela. So there's this mutual connection between me and the national team, and people knew who I was and still am in Venezuela. And there's a history there. So back in 2023, I got to go back to call a game in Maturin, which is where the team now plays their home games for qualifiers. And there were 55,000 people there, and my parents were there. And they've never seen me call a game in person. They've seen me on television, but not live in the stadium. So I flew him in to be with me, and I lost it. The second the national anthem, I tell the story now and I get goosebumps, and I might really just start crying because it's 55,000 people belting your national anthem. It's like you feel like you're about to go to war, and 55,000 of your countrymen are shoulder to shoulder with you in a world of division, of hate, of idiocy on social media. There were 55, and in a country with the political landscape that Venezuela has, there were 55,000 of us, shoulder to shoulder, screaming out to our best ability our national anthem. And I just started crying because it's a unifying religious experience to live through those 90 seconds or whatever the anthem lasts. And then when your country, and I was lucky enough, I called the last victory of Venezuela at home in those qualifiers against Chile. It was a 3-0 game. And to call 3 goals and to have, and when we scored the first goal, everyone erupted. I had this call, stuck in my throat for the past 8 years, and to just release it. It was a release, and I cried again. I mean, I got to the call, and once I gave way from my color commentator to analyze the play, I just cried. If you go on my Instagram account at Toma Papa, the first and second video you'll see pinned is that day. Is me wearing a burgundy suit because Venezuela plays with burgundy colors, and I'm done with the call. And as my friend and analyst is doing his job, I'm just crying because I held it. Whatever sport you think you like the most, if you're a Utah Jazz fan or a Mammoth fan, whatever team you root for, or a Utes fan, picture being away from that for 8 years and then coming back to the same place you knew you loved and getting to do that thing you love more than anything in the world. This is what I do. I don't want to do anything else. This is what I was born to do. I love it more than anything, except my kids. And that was just unreal. Like, I'm here again, and it's happening, and I'm calling. It was phenomenal. Just amazing. That's what I hope we get to experience as a nation come the World Cup, that we can all hug at home or in the stadium and just belt the Star-Spangled Banner and see our team kick some butt, because there's nothing like it. Nothing. If you think the Miracle on Ice was spectacular, if you think winning the gold with Steph Curry in the past Olympics was awesome, this is beyond. This is times 5,000. There's nothing like it. Nothing.
I just think that's so cool. I think it's very unique to soccer. Maybe we have some American equivalents with it with some college football fans, but that must have been quite a moment. Look, I do have to set you loose. This has been awesome, but we probably should talk about, the game that you're coming into town for. So we'll end on this. A couple of straight L's for RSL has kind of diminished the shine off a really, really good start, but I do think Pablo's got a good team this year. What are you looking forward to most Saturday afternoon, Carlos?
No, I agree. I mean, the Miami game, the LA game were tough, but I think Coach Mastroeni's squad has shown growth, resilience. If you see a team fight back with young players like Xavier Gozo, like Aiden Hazard-Khani, who are just so young and talented, you have to be encouraged by what RSL has shown over the past couple of weeks. So I expect a high-flying affair. Portland is a very good team. Again, their current standing does not reflect what they are. I think RSL needs to be more on cue with their pace. I think more speed, more pace, more rhythm for the Claret and Cobalt would be beneficial for them against this team, against this Portland side. You can't make mistakes when you have on build-up. RSL will try to build up closer to Pantemis, that is the Portland goalkeeper. Diego Luna needs to go back to peak level competition. Diego Luna, he needs to be the centerpiece of that attack. Rafa Cabral to keep doing his thing at goal. Again, I expect a really tightly contested match between RSL and Portland. It's been 42 games between both clubs, and RSL does hold a 14 victory, 16 draw, and loss, and 12 tie record. So right now it's in favor of Portland, but just by 2 games. So it's always been fun to watch RSL and Portland go at it. And now with what you mentioned with the Noah Caliscan extension, let's see what that means and does for him on the pitch.
Carlos, thanks, man. This has been a treat. Fun to get to know you. Travel safe to our market and have a great call, okay?
Thank you. Thank you for this. I appreciate the time, the questions. It was a phenomenal interview. You're great at what you do. I love Salt Lake City. I love the market. I love what they have with the Mammoth and the Jazz, and now with RSL. Hopefully MLB gets at some point to go to Utah as well. I know there's a lot of movement and backing in the city to bring Major League Baseball there. So thank you. Looking forward to it. I can't wait to get to Utah soil. And again, the broadcast on Apple TV, both in English and Spanish. My good friend Max Bretos and Brian Dunseth, who lives in Salt Lake, will be there on the English call. I'll be with my brother Max Cordaro calling it in Spanish. You can catch both on Apple TV, the home of MLS.
There he is, Carlos Mauricio Ramirez. He'll be in town to call the RSL Portland game. It is an early kick, kids. Remember, at 2:45. So make sure to tune in. I'll tell you what, I cannot even fathom what it would be like to do this show in English one day and then like roll in tomorrow and just do it in Spanish. Like, that's wild for me to wrap my mind around. ¿Cuál es la fecha de hoy? I think what's the date today. I made it to Spanish too in high school. I got a few phrases, but to call an entire game in English and then roll in the next day and do it in Spanish, man, that's some impressive stuff.
That takes like a different level of comfortability with it for sure. Probably a bilingual life to be a bilingual broadcaster, because like you said, I'm just getting this one down on the English side. Sometimes people are listening and are probably like, my English teacher, shout out Miss Rydalch. I know she actually listens because she was Rydalch.
Wait, did the Rydalches do everything at your high school? I didn't know you. So we got the basketball player, Rydalch, and then we got the English teacher. Is that correct?
I think she might be the principal now of some sort.
Shout out.
But I'm sure she listens and is like, oh, no. The English stuff is still a work in progress here.
Kaite Bobo. Do you know what I just said to you?
No idea.
Shut up, stupid.
There you go.
It's mean. It's rude. I shouldn't have said that. But I know like 10 Spanish phrases. I can unload all of them in half a segment.
Yeah, and all of mine that I learned from my Spanish-speaking friends growing up are not radio friendly.
Yeah, I think I learned how to say, like, I'd like to drink a beer at some point. It's like cerveza. I don't know. It's not in my wheelhouse. I'm not going to, Rosetta Stone the language and roll it into Spanish radio. I can tell you that much. All right, we'll catch a quick break. Coming up on the other side, it is a Thursday, so it's Sports Court with Handy and Handy. 5 o'clock hour, we'll get back to the Utah Mammoth, who lost in double overtime last night. We'll do some NBA playoffs and the latest on the Big 12, striking a deal with a private equity company. Will Utah and BYU look to do it? My guess is no, but we'll talk about it later right here on ESPN 700. It is Sports Court time. We do it every Thursday, right about now, with our good friends Garrett and Preston Handy from the law firm of Handy and Handy. Gentlemen, happy Thursday. How we doing?
Hey, Spence. How you doing?
Spence.
All good here. Glad we're starting with this one. Brendan Sorsby, who was the number one player in the ESPN transfer portal and landed at Texas Tech for a cool $5 million, has taken a leave of absence. He's entered a residential treatment program for a gambling addiction. The floor is yours. What's the latest?
Yeah, this hit this week that Brendan Sorsby, as you mentioned, is entering rehab for gambling addiction. This grows out of a situation where he's placed thousands of bets off an app on college games, but specifically the one that's being investigated is in 2022. This guy's bounced around a little bit in today's world. He played for Indiana. I didn't know that. He played his freshman season in Indiana, I think also his sophomore season. And during that freshman season, he placed a number of bets on his team. Now, it's reported that he didn't play in any of those games, and his bets were all for the Indiana Hoosiers to win. So now the NCAA is investigating. As we mentioned, he's entering rehab, and, this is catches attention of all of us here because it's a Big 12 team. But the NCAA's come out and says, they have a policy that they monitor gambling through a collaborative integrity monitoring, and they say they have zero tolerance policy for athletes who attempt to influence game outcomes or wagers that can result in permanent loss of college eligibility. Specifically, they say if you bet on your games and you're playing and you influence, you're out for good. If, the investigation shows that. Also, if you bet on your sport at another school, it could result in a 50% loss of year eligibility. And they have a laundry list of lesser crimes. But, here's a question. This is just an investigation, and nothing's been determined or concluded. But, they obviously know these bets were being placed. Here's a question that comes up to me is, let's say Brendan Sorsby, for whatever reason, can't play at Texas Tech. Has he breached his contract with them? I'm sure there's a morality clause in there. Breached his contract with them, and they don't have to pay him. Unlike maybe, if he got injured or for whatever reason had to sit out a year. So that might result in certain legal things. Texas Tech, we can all guess, is crossing their fingers and doing everything they can to get him through rehab and game ready come week one of the coming football season.
All right, that's a good question. Preston, you're a smart guy. I'll tell you what. Garrett, you're up, bud.
Well, I just would say real quick, this gambling story with Brendan overshadows his other legal problem, which is the lawsuit by University of Cincinnati against him for $1 million buyout from that contract. And actually the same day that the news broke on the gambling story, his lawyers filed a motion to dismiss in that case. And kind of interesting, basically saying, how's actually an employee? So anyway, I think that's something worth you talking about weeks to come. But he's embroiled in a lot right now.
No track expert, but I would imagine shoes are somewhat important. Abby Steiner is suing Puma and Mercedes F1 over a claim of defective shoes that ended her career. What's going on?
Yeah, and that's basically what it's about. I mean, she's got these shoes. They've got a carbon fiber plate in the shoe and also some, nitrofoam technology, whatever that is. But what she's basically saying is that the way these shoes are designed, that it's just caused serious injuries to her feet and ankles, and that she's not able to compete anymore. So this is a product liability lawsuit. She's saying these shoes are defective in different ways, how they were manufactured and designed, that there were no warnings. So it's a product liability lawsuit. I think potentially it's a tough case. I wanted to see that there are other athletes that are having the same problem with these shoes. I can't find anything. She seems to be the only one saying, "Hey, these shoes are causing me a bunch of problems." And again, as a sprinter, a professional sprinter, you think she'd have access to a lot of different shoes. But she was a Puma athlete, so she's going to use their shoes. But she's also claiming that this has deprived her an opportunity to compete in the Olympics. So potentially some big damages.
You're up, Preston.
Yeah, well, I'm going to respond to when I first saw this, Garrett throw this story at me, I thought, oh, we've talked about this as an update, but no, it's not. Remember, we talked about the cow runner, Heather Cerny. I looked it up again. She sued Nike for product liability, for negligence, and for breach of warranty claims, breach of, disclosure of claims. And again, she claimed that their shoe, the Alpha Fly, if you remember, we talked about this, had a carbon fiber footwear. There were experts, Harvard experts, that came out and looked at this shoe and said it resulted in increased pressure on the foot and ankle mechanics and resulted in bone injuries. She had bone injuries and multiple surgeries and became essentially, she had permanent disabilities and no longer running. So apparently Puma and Nike, not only the competitors, but they're using this the same technology, and I think it's going to be very, very expert driven on what experts can sell and based on their testing of these type of things. But yeah, there has been another one.
All right, let's move over to the latest scandal for an NFL team that only morally bankrupt people cheer for, the New England Patriots. Just kidding. Mike Vrabel, Diana Rossini, everyone knows the deal. What do you guys have on this one?
Yeah, let's have some fun with this one. So there's been weeks of talk about this scandal. A lot of photos came out of Mike Vrabel and reporter Diana Rossini from The Athletic. These were photos that were obviously of them talking about strategies that Mike Vrabel has with his defense and roster construction. That's really what they were talking about in these photos, and they've come out. So that's joking there aside, but these photos were at a private resort. And so our guy, Michael McCann, he comes in with some legal issues on this, really interesting, and talks about the legalities surrounding this and whether they can be used. He points to the fact that I got a quote from Michael McCann, and he says, I'll pass on that, but he says, photographs themselves are problematic in ways that pose potential hurdles in the workplace investigation. Photographs could constitute illegal invasion of privacy of Vrabel and Rossini, as well as a tort of intrusion upon seclusion. This resort explicitly limits photography to times when guests are not included. Photographs are forbid. So basically what he's looking into is if there's an investigation, could these photographs as evidence be excluded as evidence in any investigation? I'm sure that Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini just want this thing to go away, and they don't want to pull up some of these claims. They also claim that it's potential criminal. McCann points out as a potential criminal to take these photos. And so both employers, are they relying on, I think this is the crux of it, are they relying on illegally obtained evidence in their investigation?
All right, Garrett, over to you, bud.
Well, I was interested to see kind of the employment angle on this, and what The Athletic was maybe going to do with her, because they backed her up initially when she said, "Oh, this is laughable," and then more photos started coming out, and she, pretty quickly resigned before they could complete their investigation. But anyway, I don't know that Vrabel's going to face any real punishment from the NFL.
Yeah,
definitely not for the Patriots.
There's no way he faces punishment from the Patriots. I can guarantee you that.
Is going to come down on that?
No, he's busy getting a massage. Nope, sorry. Well, let's move on quickly. Quickly, we're moving on. All right, latest with the House settlement, the legal issues, NIL chaos with multimedia rights and sponsors. What's the latest here?
Yeah, and this is a little wonky, but I think a really important topic. In the news this week, right, is private equity money with the Big 12. And so with the House settlement, we've got this $20.5 million salary cap, and obviously schools are spending more than that, right? And so how do they get around that? Well, the way they get around that is really NIL deals, and the NIL deals happen with multimedia partners like Learfield, for example. And so here, the House settlement has kind of specifically defined that it applies to these what are called, quote, associated entities and individuals. And so when the case was settled, the judge basically said, hey, there's going to be some details that you guys are going to have to work out, the plaintiffs and the NCAA. Well, here's one of them, and it's whether or not these multimedia entities that are doing NIL deals outside of this quote-unquote salary cap, whether they are associated entities or individuals. And so the plaintiffs in the case have filed a motion to say, hey, we want this term defined, and they don't want them to fall under that designation. So I think it's an important issue right now because, again, I mean, even though there's a settlement, there's still details that need to be hashed out, and so this is going to go back before the court.
You're up, Preston.
Yeah, I mean, I got to admit, as many times we've talked about the House settlement leading up to it and when it was agreed to, I don't have a memory, and if anyone probably should be us on Sports Court. I don't remember when they said this is when it's going to go into play, and obviously I think everyone thought about by now that it would have, but it hasn't, and I don't know right now in the foreseeable future when it's going to go into play because now there's all these legal issues. There's people that haven't even opted into it. They don't like the House settlement, and so when is this really going to come into play where the schools are getting the broadcast, shared broadcast money and it's being paid out? Either of you know the answer to that? Is it starting this season?
No, it's a good question. Go ahead, Garrett.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, you've got the College Sports Commission, which that's what the House settlement, that's the enforcement arm of the House settlement, and they've been denying, and that's why we've got this current legal issue. They've been denying these multimedia deals and saying, no, this is not proper under the settlement, and so that's why the plaintiffs would come back. So, but it's a little unclear. I mean, I agree with you, Preston. I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, when does BYU and Utah and other schools, when do they get their $22.5 million, to divvy out and spread out? I don't know when that is.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Harlan has said that he anticipates Utah being a full member rev share with the $22 million. I mean, that's on the record, but to your point, it feels like all of this, at this point, it's conversation without anything that's final. At least that's the way I feel about it. All right, let's move over to the final one for today. A former Adidas executive is suing the company, alleging she was fired for reporting gender discrimination. What's the latest?
Yeah, this is Lindsey Gregg, who was a high exec with Adidas, head of women's sports marketing, had tons of WNBA athletes, among other athletes. She is suing Adidas now after being fired. This grew out of a situation where at the NBA All-Star game, apparently there were changing trailers for athletes, and it said NBA, but I think it's the NBA, but not WNBA. But there were some female athletes changing in these trailers, and there were some unexpected males in the trailers. And so she reported it, and she was fired. So she has sued Adidas. She's claiming gender disparity. She claims that she has a much higher caseload than some of her male counterparts, claiming that this is a gender disparity. She, as part of her lawsuit, she seeks reinstatement of her job. She wants the lost wages and benefits that she lost. She's seeking damages for emotional distress and attorney's fees. She's claiming a retaliation opposing gender discrimination, whistleblower retaliation. Her attorney came out and said Oregon law protects employees who raise these type of concerns about discrimination and unlawful conduct. And she's saying she did exactly what the law requires, and now she's being fired and retaliated against.
All right, Garrett, final word is yours, my man.
Well, I was going to say, from what I can see, Oregon, like Utah, is an at-will employment state, and that means you can be fired for any reason or no reason at all, and that's certainly going to be Adidas's defense, and they've said as much. They've said it was a quote-unquote business decision to let her go, so that's what she's challenging.
All right, gentlemen, before I set you loose for this Thursday, for any of our listeners who have legal questions, how do they get a hold of you over at Handy and Handy?
We'd love to help any listeners out with their legal questions. You can reach us at 801-264-6677 or go to our website, handyLawUtah.com.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. As always, go Utes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks,
Go
Ben.
Utes.
All right, there they are. Garrett and Preston Handy. We got to catch a break to get to the final hour of the show. I'll do some NBA playoffs, some Utah Mammoth, latest on the Big 12, and their private equity deal. 1 hour left on a Thursday. Keep it here on ESPN 700. I'm not going to make fun of this song because you sent something on Instagram that some country bro passed away. So is this the country bro that passed?
Yeah.
Okay. See, I'm a good person. It's not my deal, but who is this? And obviously somebody that you enjoy listening to. Yeah.
A lot of, little David Allen Coe on the
shout out
the way out. I would say a Gobert-like polarizing figure.
Oh, really?
He's just one of those guys that you got to separate the songwriter from the fella, if you will.
You know, I don't have a problem doing that.
I don't either.
I know some people do, and if that's your deal, that's fine. But if you're looking for a moral compass, don't look in the area of entertainers,
especially like outlaw country guys.
Yeah,
but yeah, like you can listen to Michael Jackson. You can listen to songs that are.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll play tomorrow. I got you.
We a little MJ tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm fine with that. We were talking about Robert Kraft earlier. Well, with our guys Garrett and Preston Handy. I don't think I've ever told you a story. I had a really wild experience with Robert Kraft. Believe it or not.
Oh,
I was
no.
I was at the Super Bowl
in Florida.
It was not in Florida. This was the Super Bowl where the Giants beat the Patriots, where Tyree had that crazy catch and Eli, threw it up. And I'm with my family, and a guy named Eric Gelfand ran PR for The Garden for years and then left to work for my father. Love Eric. He's the best. And I'm watching the game, and he came up to me. He's like, hey, Robert Kraft's new girlfriend hung out with you in college. She's in the suite with him and wants to say hello. And I was like, I need you to say that sentence to me one more time. And he's laughing because he thinks it's ridiculous. He's like, dude, he's in the suite with his new girlfriend. She's like your age. She said she went to the University of Utah with you, and she just wants to say hello. Come say hi to her. I walk in, and I'm like, her name's Ricky. I was like, Ricky, like, I hadn't seen her since I was like 19 years old. So what I didn't know is that she had left Utah to go try to become an actress, L.A., New York, and met Robert Kraft somehow. Robert Kraft, I believe, is in his 80s, correct?
Now I think so.
Something like that. And she says, this is my boyfriend. I think she called him Bob, if I remember correctly. This is my boyfriend, Bob. And I was like, oh, yeah, I know who you are. Hello, Mr. Kraft. How are you? Shook my hand, had a beverage of some sort in his hand. Went back and watched the game with my family. Said hello to this girl who I hung out with in college and now is dating Robert Kraft. It was the weirdest thing.
Oh, Eskimo Brothers.
Will you watch your mouth? This is a family-friendly program. Unbelievable with you. Me and old Bobby Kraft. Okay. Yeah, that was wild. But yes, Mike Vrabel will not be facing any ramifications for this behavior from an owner like that.
Absolutely not.
I can tell you that much.
Yeah, no, you got plenty more room for error, Mr. Mike.
So we'll unpack a little bit more. This Big 12 private equity deal, the more and more I read about it, the more and more I think it's a very slippery slope that Utah and BYU should not touch. BYU will not. They don't have to. Utah already has a deal with a private equity firm. I don't think you want to take a $30 million line of credit out from another private equity firm when there's no guarantee your revenue is going to meet their projections. Because guess what happens if your revenue doesn't meet the projections of a private equity partner? They have their hands in everything, including your distributions from the entire university. So we'll get to some of that coming up tomorrow. Busy show today, though. Porter, how are we getting our weekend started out the right way on a Friday show?
Dave McMiniman stops by for your NBA Daily Assist. Adrian Denny stops by on a game day for the Utah Mammoth, of course, staving off elimination, hopefully. Pablo Mastroeni stops by, of course, talking RSL in Portland. And then we're talking some golf with Paul Pugmire, Live, PGA, the latest over there.
There you go. So join us for a Friday show. We'll say goodnight for a Thursday. Special thank you to Howard Beck, Stormy Bonatoni, as well as Carlos Mauricio Ramirez and our good friends at Sports Court. My guy Ryan from Epic Brewery. Check out their new spot, 825 State Street, downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. If you miss anything from the show, website ESPN 700 Sports. Download the mobile app, take us on the go. Check out the podcast page. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. Please subscribe to it, rate it, review it. If you say nice things and give us all the stars, you will have eternal life. That's Porter. I'm Spence saying goodnight. Have an excellent Thursday evening. We'll talk to you on a jam-packed Friday drive. As always, you can catch it right here on ESPN 700.